Start, we'll just come to order. This is the regular meeting, December 13th for City Council, 7 o'clock on Tuesday night. Glad to see you're all here. And we'll start. City Clerk, can we roll call?
The record will show that all members are present.
City Attorney, closed session report?
No, there's nothing to report.
Good. All right, we're making good progress. Okay, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation from Reverend Karl Stuckenberg. Mr. Nichols.
Please follow me, with your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd invite everybody to join with me in a moment of reflection. Loving God, as our daily work leads us down so many different paths, so too as human beings we choose different paths of faith that lead us to you. Remind us that you are bigger than any path that we might choose and that you're larger than any difference we might have with one another. And as our City Council makes decisions, we ask that you'd make your presence known with guidance and with wisdom. And may all we do as citizens in this community and state and nation and world be working towards peace and justice and the common good for all. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Stuckenberg. Our next order of business is presentations. City Clerk, do you have an order tonight?
Yes, we do. We've added a couple of presentations to tonight's calendar. And first of all, the grand jury presentation that is on there will be continued to January 10th. So our first presentation will be Operation Christmas for Our Troops. Brad White, the legislative representative for the National Guard Association of California, and Captain Nolan Flores. And I believe there may be some others here as well to give that presentation.
Thank you, Levon. Greetings, Mayor Reverend, and also City Council members. I just want to say thank you so much for your past efforts, and especially Mayor. The city under your helm has done a terrific job taking care of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and family members, and it is with, I guess, great joy I am here to announce official greetings from the Office of Secretary of Defense, specifically America Supports You, which is our mechanism to keep support up among Americans and supporting America's military and their family members. Operation Christmas for Our Troops, too, is now the largest toy drive nationwide for America's military and family members. I want to commend the City of Newport Beach for being part of that. We now have 356 drop-off locations statewide, and we are making great progress in making sure that we make a Merry Christmas possible for nearly 300 military installations in our state. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for that great event that you guys are sponsoring this coming up Thursday, which is going to be, I believe, here, which is an official toy drop-off spot. And I've already had numerous individuals and groups say that they're going to be bringing toys here and meeting you folks and meeting the troops and being able to help bring Christmas to a lot of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard members and their families. And with that, I'd like to introduce Captain Flores. He is the district commander right here in Orange County for the California Army National Guard, and he's going to share a little bit about his birthday today. It's the National Guard's 369th birthday. They look good for their age. And with that, Captain Flores.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the time. As Brad mentioned, the toy drive that we're having is mainly targeted, of course, for our deployed soldiers, and we appreciate your efforts in inviting us to have this toy drive. And like Brad was mentioning, we did today officially 369th birthday for the Army National Guard, and of course we started as the militia, you may know, and that's why we're the oldest branch of service today. And well, I appreciate this time right now. I'm the area officer in charge for recruiting and retention, and I appreciate any efforts that you may have and any activities, future activities you may have to inviting us to support them in any way that we can with equipment, personnel, and just inviting us to extend our efforts with the community, as you know, with the relief efforts that we've done over the past years. For example, Katrina, we had over 300 soldiers over there in Katrina supporting what happened over there. And, we're just an extension of you and the community. Just want to appreciate, I'd like to thank you for our invitation today.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, Staff Sergeant Silva, he is actually the actual local recruiter for the area here. Just wanted to introduce you to him as well. So.
Good.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations on a great tenure, and we welcome officially Mayor Pro Tem Webb, and we look forward to having a great toy drive. We got a week and a half left, and we had a press conference with Ralph's last week. Miramax Films has donated 20,000 DVDs. So it looks like our deployed military members will be doing that great time-honored tradition of watching plenty of TV and entertainment until they come home. Thank you.
Okay, before you leave, as I understand it, this is from the flyer here, on Thursday, this Thursday, December 15th, from 10 to 11, we'll have a toy drive here on the front lawn, City Hall. Is that right? This is Levon?
That's correct.
Marcos? Okay. And there'll be equipment here, right?
There's
Levon, why
gonna
don't you
be,
explain?
From my understanding, the arrangements that have been made with the National Guard, there will be Humvees here for you to see and climb on and whatnot. There will be, some of the troops will be present. Santa Claus is going to make a special appearance. There's going to be light refreshments. Please stop by between 10 and 11. We'll be out here on the front lawn, so you don't have to try to find a place to park. And we'll be kind of at the corner of 32nd Street and Newport Boulevard, so just drop by with your unwrapped toys or new or used DVDs for the troops. We
Okay,
appreciate your
but this is a town that also can do other things. What if somebody wants to give money? How would they do that? What would the check be made out to?
Well, as soon as me falling on the ground would reoccur from that, that would be made out to Yellow Ribbon America. Now that we have 20,000 DVDs, we need to make sure the U.S. Post Office gets paid for those shipping of DVDs and video games. They can make it out to Yellow Ribbon America. We're a project of the National Guard Association of California, which is an official nonprofit, and it would greatly help a lot of the necessities. We've been spending money on posters for Ralph's and things that we probably should be using for postage, but definitely talk to your accountant. I know Uncle Sam's going to be knocking on everyone's door after the first of the year. This is a great cause. It's a cause of freedom and the people who fight for it and sacrifice for it. And we know there's all kinds of great causes out there, but we'd appreciate the support this time out.
Okay, before you leave, there's two teachers at my wife's high school that have been deployed.
Oh, wow.
National Guard. We went to Iraq and went to Afghanistan. So we'd be honored, my wife and I, $500 check before Levon will get tonight to aid your cause. Because you do wonderful work, and I think the National Guard, quite frankly, doesn't really get the press and the notoriety of the Marines and Air Force and Army and everything else. So we're glad to do it, and I'm glad you brought this opportunity to the city of Newport Beach to help. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cool.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
All right, City Clerk, what's next?
The next presentation is a presentation of a check from the Newport Beach Library Foundation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. And,
Hello, Mr. Edwards.
How are you, Mr. Heffernan? Mr. Mayor, sorry. And members of the,
In the waning minutes of being mayor. Thank you.
are you counting them?
No, I just know I like this. I like my old seat.
Oh, okay. You don't need someone to cover your back then.
Well, just the door.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Keeping in the holiday spirit, I thought it only fitting that the Newport Beach Public Library Foundation come down, 10 days before Christmas and present one more in a series of checks that have come to the benefit of the city and its wonderful library system this year. I've asked Karen Clark, who is on your Library Board of Trustees, is joining me. I will make the presentation to her. I'd also like you to recognize, if she'd stand up and come forward, is your city librarian, Linda Katsuleas. I actually got that properly pronounced, I believe. Anyway, I want to thank the City Council for all the unwavering support of our library system. I want to thank the patrons who make it a great library system. As you know, it was just voted the #1 for its size in the United States. That's a salute to not only the City Council and the members of the staff, but also the people who contribute to our foundation and all the people in the groundswell of support that we continually get. With our check tonight, we will be just a little shy of contributing $400,000 this year to the city. In your waning moments, Mayor Heffernan, I wish you would come join us so that you can be in perhaps one of your final pictures.
How much is this check for?
It's a surprise.
Oh. Well, give it to John.
This one is $81,900. I will present it. Want everybody? Another one? Should I smile? Good side?
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Aaron?
Thank you, yes. Okay. I certainly like to thank the foundation and Tom for all the support that they've given the library. I mean, they're one of the reasons that we are such a fabulous library, is we have such good community support as well as city council support. We certainly thank all of you for this long support. And that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and for those of you that don't remember it, it's Mayor Tom Edwards. He was up here himself a few years back.
City Clerk, what's next?
Taste of Newport Grant Program.
All right.
Sure, that was two.
Okay, we're going to leapfrog, and we're going to go,
We've lost our taste here.
we're going to go to why most of you are probably here tonight, and that's to commemorate the great victory for Newport Harbor High School against Valencia, CIF champs. Now, I have two sons. James Coder knows them, Nick Frazier knows them, and we've had 1 and 9 seasons, and then a 5 and 6 season. So to win, my retail partner played in Newport Harbor. Won some very good teams, but never won. To win the championship is the great feat. It's what you practice so hard for. That's what you take all those crappy practices when you're underclassmen for. And this is why it's such a great achievement for Newport Beach. And this is why I said, hey, this doesn't happen. Let's have a presentation tonight. Short order, but we all reacted because you did such a great job. So I'm going to read the proclamation, and I'm going to give it to Coach Brinkley. Where's Coach Brinkley? Good. When I'm done, come on up. I'll give it to you. But I want to... Yes, let's get you all up so you're not just part of the casserole in there. Let's take a look at you. All right, this is great. I'm going to no, keep pointing that way. You don't listen. I got sons. Don't worry. You're not on the spot. Okay. This is the proclamation from the City of Newport Beach, from the City Council. Whereas on December 10, 2005, Newport Harbor High School won the CIF Southern Section Division 6 football championship, beating Valencia High School Placentia by a score of 28-21. It was the third CIF football title in the Sailors' storied history, with the others occurring in 1999 and 1994. Sailors finished the season with an 11-3 record and shared the Seaview title. And in winning the CIF Southern Section Division 6 title, Newport Harbor High head football coach Jeff Brinkley guided the Sailors to an amazing 7th title game in the last 14 football seasons. It's darn good. The Sailors overcame many injuries and adversities during the year in developing a never-give-up attitude. The Newport Harbor High School football team made this community proud by the team's spirit, attitude, humility, good sportsmanship, superior athletic ability, and teamwork it displayed all year. The team's hard work and ability to come together as a team and the outstanding leadership provided by 22 seniors has resulted in the Sailors being deserve of the name champions. Therefore, on behalf of the City Council, on behalf of the entire city, we proclaim December 14th as Newport Harbor High CIF Champions Day. Congratulations.
Thank you very much for recognizing the football program and the efforts of these young men. They did a great job, and I can't speak highly enough about not only what they do on the field, but what they do off the field. And again, thank you for your support and the community support, and we will display this proudly back at the high school.
Coach Brinkley?
Yes, sir.
I went to the game Saturday night, and I want to say I went to some of the games in the beginning of the season. I went to the Battle of the Bay, and I thought to myself, if these guys played like they played in the Battle of the Bay, they don't have a chance. And yet, it was wonderful to see. They were inspired. They had enthusiasm, and they were really playing well. I understand Mr. Jackson isn't here, your quarterback. He was fabulous, by the way. I happened to be sitting with some of the parents, as I understand it, in the dedication of these guys. One of them, the running back, Mr. I think Rippon.
Right.
He has reconstructive surgery, and he went to Europe to get that. Austria. I mean, I can't believe, but anyhow, you guys improved, you deserved it. You played extremely well on Saturday night. The score probably should have been 28-14, but, you know, who's counting that last touchdown?
Sure.
But it was a great game to watch from a spectator's point of view, and I just want to say congratulations to you as a coach, team well coached, and to the players who they looked magnificent out there that night. It was great to watch.
Again, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks again, guys.
Unbelievable. Okay, now you can go to the training table right now.
Good. Fine. Do I have it? Oh, a secret. Good. That's why they do it. Otherwise, it's okay. City Clerk, what's our next?
We're going to go back again because I see Richard Lures is here, and we're going to do the Taste of Newport grant program.
Mayor Heffernan, members of the council, thank you for giving me a second shot.
No, it's never a second shot. You're front and center. Glad to have you.
Thank you. As you're probably aware, my name is Richard Lures. I'm the president of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, and our charge in the community here for almost 100 years, not quite yet our centennial, but coming soon, has been to promote the local economy and promote the community. About 17 years ago, a few restaurateurs got together and said, hey, Richard, we're having a little bit of problem here. We see some competition coming up on the horizon. What can we do about marketing restaurants here in Newport Beach? And so we came up with the concept of the Taste of Newport. 17 years later, I'm proud to say that Taste of Newport is alive and well. And tonight we are very pleased to be able to share some of the proceeds of the financial success of the Taste of Newport. And so tonight I once again have the opportunity to present some checks to local worthwhile charitable organizations. And if you'll just give me a moment, I'd like to call up someone from the Girl Scout Council of Orange County. Nancy, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. We also have a check for leadership tomorrow. I know Tim's caught in traffic, but I'm sure there's a representative here. Thank you very much, and keep up the great job with leadership tomorrow. Our good friends, where's Scott Paulson? Is he here tonight at the Newport Mesa Schools Foundation? They always do a fabulous job. We're delighted to have those teachers do the job that they do for our kids. Thank you, Scott. Another organization dear to our hearts is the Newport Harbor Nautical Museum. We are very pleased with the work that they're doing and wish them all the success in their new endeavors over at the Fun Zone. Congratulations. Also, something near and dear to the business community's heart is literacy, and we have a check here for the Newport Beach Public Library Literacy Program. And then I have three others here, one for Human Options, the Newport Bay Naturalist and Friends, and Youth Employment Service. And I don't believe, oh, you did show up. Thank you. Thank you very much, and congratulations. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of the program tonight. We're very proud of our program, and hope that the city of Newport Beach benefits as much as we do. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for doing all the work for the Taste of Newport. It's part of our community's fall events. Thank you again. City Clerk?
We have one more presentation. It's a presentation by the Corona Del Mar Centennial Foundation, Bernice Falstead.
Good. Bernice Falstead and Peggy Ford.
Bernice Falstead, Chairman of the Corona Del Mar Centennial Foundation. We had a fabulous couple years. We had a big celebration during the Christmas walk, again for our Centennial Plaza, which will be a historic monument for hopefully the next 100 years. We want to, our Board of Directors voted unanimously to donate to the Newport Beach Centennial $5,000. So we'd like to present that check to you.
Mr. Webb will gladly retrieve that check. Thank you.
It's not 25, but it's 5 anyway.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
We would also just like to, again, thank the City Council for their support of the foundation in the last 3 years. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, our entire Planning Committee, and the contributors to the Corona Del Mar Centennial, which we raised approximately $700,000 in the last 2 years, we are doing this as a gesture to help bring the community together, and we would like to, in the spirit of the Centennial, wish Newport Beach 100-year birthday celebration, the city that we all work in, live in, and love. So it's our pleasure to contribute.
Thank you again. It's great. City Clerk, are you now running the meeting?
Yes, I am. Should we adjourn?
I thought of that more than once. No, don't tempt me.
Item number 1 on the agenda is the election of the mayor. This is the time for the election of the mayor, and just kind of to go over some of the procedures. Nominations do not require a second, and a majority vote is required to elect. The motion to close nominations does require a second and a 2/3 vote. If there's more than one nomination, the voting will be done by paper ballot, and the results will be read at the conclusion of the balloting. If there's only one nomination at the voting, they will be done using the electronic voting equipment. Nominations are now open. Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Don Webb.
Are there any other nominations?
I'll second.
I'll move that the nominations be closed.
Second.
Please vote. To close the this is just to close the nominations. I just erased it all. There was a unanimous vote to close the nominations.
We'll
Sorry,
take your
Don.
word for it.
Now
That's
we'll
fine.
vote for Don Webb for mayor. There we go. You can vote. Don Webb is the new mayor.
So you change places. Don was
We'll change places and go through the election. We now have the election of Mayor Pro Tem. And the nominations, as I have the same rules as for mayor. They do not require a second. Do I hear any nominations for Mayor Pro Tem?
I'll nominate Councilman Steve Rosansky.
I'll make a motion for closing the nominations. They need a second.
Second.
Okay, comfortable then closing.
This is a vote on the closing. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Do we now have a vote for Steve Rosansky for Mayor Pro Tem?
Motion carries. Steve Rosansky is the new mayor pro tem.
Can we reseat? We change the seats? Okay, now is the musical chairs. Councilmember Ridgway, you get to choose where you would like to sit.
Okay, I'd like to sit where you are.
Sorry. That place is taken, and you've had it twice already.
Okay. Then I'll sit right here.
Okay. Councilmember Heffernan? Okay. Mr. Nichols?
I'm happy where I am.
Let's see. Councilmember Daigle, you're next.
I'm content here.
I guess you're stuck where you are, Ed. Oh, my. Okay. The next item on the agenda are remarks, and Councilmember Heffernan, Mayor Heffernan, you get to go first.
Okay, I took office as mayor, I think, mid-June, when former Mayor Bromberg went to the bench. And so I haven't been in office for a full year. I've been for a portion. And my observations are that I think that with a budget of $190 million, that I think the mayor's position, the mayor's office, we should have staff. We should be running it on a, not say more professional basis, but for a guy who lives in, who operates out of Newport Center, it's been difficult at best because I can't operate here easily and maintain a business. But to have staff, because I've had to employ staff myself in exchange for that, I think we can run it on a more complete basis because you get a lot of requests and documents and things that's very difficult to react to in the midst of a law practice and other things. Which isn't so much a criticism, but I just think we can do it better because there's much more to do in this city. And maybe it's just been a peculiar year when there's a lot more going on. Secondly, as I've said, I think in the newspaper, I think it'd be, and it's not my decision, it's the rest of this council, as well, to elect our mayor. Let the citizens elect our mayor for a 2-year term. Two things, elect and for a 2-year term, and to have them have the backing of a vote of the people. And we could potentially do this as early as next November when we know the slate at the end of November, and then we'd have a priority-type voting where we'd have the 7 members, and the residents would vote by postcard on the top 7 choices, and by that way you would have a definite winner by, say, January 1. So the idea we'd have a mayor and we'd have it voted on for 2 years, but this isn't my decision. It would be the change to the way we're doing business, but I think that would be 2 things I'd like to have happen. And also, quite frankly, like to have a full year of doing this, because you miss a lot of the cycle because you're coming in mid-term. But staff is good, and they're working hard, and quite frankly, the city's agenda on what's before it is as busy as it's been in a lot of years. Initiatives, no growth, 5 seats up coming up in this next election. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of demands being put on staff as well, and I think that we all have to work quite efficiently and very hard to keep up with the pace that's going away. But I've had a good time doing it. I'd, quite frankly, like to do it again. And but again, that's the choice for others to make as well. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mayor Heffernan for his year of service, even though it was only in 6 months, because for the first time that I can remember in a lot of years, we had a whole bunch of extra meetings, just because I think you wanted to have more meetings to take care of. So anyway, I think that you've led us through some really tough times, and in recognition of that, I'd like to present you with a gavel. I feel very honored to be given the privilege of being mayor of this wonderful city. I never would have gotten here without the support of my family. Many of them are out there right now, my wife, my 2 sons, and my extended family, the Dunninghams and McClartys. Little did I know on the 13th of May of 1968 that I'd be sitting here on the 13th of December and get the opportunity to be mayor. That's 37 years later, and the 13th has been a kind of a special day. Son Cameron was born that day. I had word today that cousin Nancy had her granddaughter today back in Savannah, Georgia. Our family does keep together. The 13th is a special day. After all, the National Guard's birthday is today, too. So it's been special to me. This next year is going to be a busy one for us. There's a lot of challenges. We have a lot of the things that we have to finish up that we started, the general plan update, our City Hall issue. We have the sphere issues that we're working on. And one of the things that I think that we will accomplish over these years, over this next year, is to hopefully bring maybe a little bit more unity to the community. I think that by providing as much information as we can, hopefully we can draw us together. It's going to be a busy year. Our staff and department heads have all been just absolutely outstanding. And the City Council would not be able to accomplish what we try to do without the benefit of the staff. I'd like to read something. This isn't quite a centennial moment, but about the time I moved to Newport Beach in 1965, the City Council had this in their minutes on December 13th, 1965, and it still applies today. The City Council extends to all city officers, city employees, their families, its best wishes for a joyous holiday season. As the year closes, the City Council wishes to thank all city employees for their faithful and conscientious service during the past year and to commend them for notable progress made. The City Council appreciates their constant efforts to improve our community and serve our residents as well. We look forward to a continuing progress and success, and I'm going to insert 2006 rather than 1966. So thank you very much for putting your confidence and faith in me, and I hope I'll be able to do the job you expect me to do. City Clerk?
Notice to the public, the city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the council. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones and pagers off or set them in the silent mode. This is the time for City Council announcements or matters which council members would like placed on a future agenda for discussion, action, or report.
Okay, Councilmember Heffernan, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. I'd like a report at the end of this holiday season on the operation of party boats in the harbor. They seem to be an increasing annoyance. That's been my input I've gotten from various people, typically on the bayfront and even as far away as Cliff Drive. The noise and constant turmoil in the bay, the regulation of them. We had an accident apparently on Lido, took out a couple docks, anchor that wasn't available to be deployed, things like that. And we've got more of them. I'd like to review, because this is probably the busiest time we have, bring it back in January with a report about, the real net benefit to the city to have them. In other words, Where does the food come that goes on the boat? Where does the liquor get bought that goes on the boat? Why should we have this in our harbor? Where does the city benefit from this versus what I think is an increasing annoyance and nuisance to the people that ring the bay because of this constant streaming of boats and the noise and the after-hours activities that go on them. So I'd like that. Let's look at it. I don't have any solution for it, but that was probably the number one criticism that I had during my tenure, albeit 6 months, was the party boats. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Stellage?
I have nothing.
Mayor Pro Tem Rosansky?
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Ridgway?
I too second Councilmember Heffernan's comments. A couple of years ago, I made the same comment. I even made the headline in the pilot, and nothing ever happened after that. So I think we need to look. I think that somewhere there's buried a comprehensive report that was done at a study session. I'm fairly confident.
One of the other items that I think we're going to be bringing forth is the revised regulations of all businesses operating, including the party boats, and that there has been quite a bit of work on this subject, a review of their procedures and regulations and a way of permitting so that we have a little bit more control. And I think the anticipated date was about January, so we'll be able to bring back both a report on what's gone before the Harbor Commission and give a little bit more information to the council in the context of the new ordinance.
Terrific.
Thank you. Councilmember Daigle?
Yes, over the Christmas holiday, we're going to be reworking the parking lot at Corona Del Mar High School. And it's really a series of improvements that began with relocating the crosswalk guard and, the crosswalk, and then bringing in the crosswalk guard, as well as a motorcycle officer for East Bluff, so we keep vehicles out of the neighborhood. So really appreciate the efforts of our Public Works Director. And also on these projects, we have to work with other agencies. So we have a good working relations with the school district, which is important to implement these projects. And then secondly, we had a meeting on trails up in my district, and appreciate Mayor Webb attended as well. And we listened to the concerns of the community. There's a lot of ruts and problems with these trails, and the county, who we also have to work closely with, they responded, and they got a crew out there, and so that maintenance has been accomplished. So appreciate the efforts of our staff in the county to improve the trails. Thank you.
Councilmember Nichols?
I have nothing.
I'd like to make a couple comments. One is I was lucky enough to be able to attend last Thursday night the 18th Citizens Police Academy graduation, and we had, I believe, 28 students graduated, and saw the video that went along with their graduation, which showed the activities, and they were doing some pretty cool things. They got to go onto the shooting range. They were given training and traffic stops. They got ride-alongs. I don't know if they got a helicopter ride, but every one of them indicated that it was just a wonderful experience. For those of you that would like to participate in something like that, they are now taking applications for the 19th Academy, and that will start on February 2nd, and it meets on Thursday nights. And so if any of you are interested, I think maybe Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Rosansky is a graduate, and
I am.
a little bit more.
Yeah, it's an excellent program. I highly encourage everyone to partake of it. It was. I mean, I've found out a lot more about our police department than I knew even as a councilman, and certainly for just an ordinary resident, that would be I think a real good experience. You really see what they get into, and you really see what a quality, fine, just all around great police force we do have, and how committed and they are, and really how intelligent a lot of those officers are. It's much more than what you would normally think. So I would encourage all of you to get out there, and it is a lot of fun. It's a time commitment, but it's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Actually, if I could add one thing.
Oh, sure.
It actually came to my attention on the way to the meeting here, and I actually thought you might mention it, but the city float committee is still looking for volunteers to decorate our float, which will be in the Rose Parade on January 2nd. I believe the dates of December 26th and 27th, there's availability for both the morning and afternoon time slots. It's $10. If you contact our Parks, our Recreation Department, they'll be able to, hook you up with that. And it should be a lot of fun. You get a T-shirt. They're going to provide meals and food and transportation up to, where's Fiesta Floats? Duarte. And it'll be an exciting thing. And then you can, sit back on June 2nd or January 2nd, watch it on TV and say, hey, I stuck that flower there, or put those, whatever they're putting on there. But it should be a lot of fun. So I encourage you all to come down and partake in that, be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar, items 5 through 22, are considered by the council to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. The city council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the council votes on the motion unless members of the council, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and/or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Members of the public who wish to discuss a consent calendar item should come forward to the lectern upon invitation by the mayor, state their name and item number. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichols, do you have anything that you'd like to remove?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Daigle? Ridgway?
I'd like to remove item 17, just one comment.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Rosansky?
None, thank you.
Zelich?
I have nothing.
Councilmember Heflin?
19, the bid to replace carpet in the main library.
Okay, does the staff have anything that they'd like to remove?
Mr. Mayor, nothing to remove, but I do have additional language for items number 16 and number 19. Number 16 is supplemental memoranda of understanding with non-safety employee associations to implement retiree medical program and establish bilingual pay. In addition to the wording under that in terms of what it would do, it should also read effective the pay period beginning December the 24th, 2005. Concurrent with the implementation of the revised retiree medical benefit, salary shall be increased by 1%. And then the additional wording on number 19 should replace the title of that item to read, approve the purchase and installation of new carpet at the Central Library in the amount of $255,113.27 pursuant to a contract with CNA Floor Coverings to be approved by the City Attorney's Office and authorize the City Manager to execute the contract. That item has been pulled, but we are wanting the wording changed for that action.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to have an item pulled from the agenda for the consent calendar? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of the consent calendar, items 5 through 22, excluding items 17 and 19, with the changes that were requested.
Second.
All in favor?
Motion carries.
Thank you. We now move to public hearings. And the first item on the agenda is item 23, the Marine Avenue Business Improvement District, renewal of Business Improvement District for the shortened 2006 fiscal year. We're to hold a public hearing, and then afterwards we'll consider our actions. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on the Marine Avenue Business Improvement District? Do we need a staff report on that at all?
No.
Okay.
I think we just need to confirm that we have not received any protests since the staff report was sent out.
We don't know that.
We're about to know
Good evening,
that.
Mayor and Council. George Berger, City Staff, and no, we have not received any protests.
Is there, okay, there's no other public comments related to this item, and I close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the council?
I move the action.
Second.
There's an or in there. Which action are you moving?
George, which one do I want? Oh, no, the A, 2A,
2A.
to approve.
Okay. This is for the approval of 2A.
1 and 1.
2A. 1.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Okay. Item 24 is the Restaurant Association Business Improvement District Renewal. Conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution for renewal of the Business Improvement District for a shortened fiscal year of 2006. We're holding a public hearing. Is there anyone, can we have a staff report as to whether or not there are any protests?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Dan Trimble, City Staff. There are no protests written or calls for the Restaurant Association.
Great. Is there anybody in the public that would like to testify or comment on this? If not, the public hearing is closed.
Move the action.
For 2A.
2A. I'll second that.
All in favor? Or vote, please.
Motion carries.
Item 25 is the update of the City of Newport Beach Urban Water Management Plan. City Manager, would you like to have somebody make a report on that one?
Pete Antista, the Acting Utilities Director, and will be assisted by Dave Kiff. Tim, are you doing it, or is Pete?
Mayor, members of the City Council, this is the 2005 Urban Water Management Plan.
John, you're shirking your job.
I don't want to do it anymore. Okay. The Urban Water Management Plan is prepared in compliance with the Urban Water Management Planning Act. It was established in 1983. Submitted to the Department of Water Resources every 5 years, due by December 31st. It must be adopted by resolution following a public hearing, and that's why we're here tonight. Focuses on water resources, supply, and use. The city plan references MWD, our surface water supplier, and MODOC, our water wholesaler. And it contains water supply projections through the year 2030. The required components are source and supply, water quality, reliability planning, water use provisions, demand management measures, storage contingency plans, and recycling. It was prepared by myself, Tim Deutsch, and consultants from Brown and Caldwell, who are in the audience to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Pete. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Antista?
I'd like to get a little sketch of some of the titles on what you're covering in there, and particularly any new type controls that we're supposed to have on our houses and restaurants and facilities, or if any will be required.
Right now, we're looking at conservation measures for household sprinkler units and water use in the area of irrigation. We're working with MODOC. MWD has some grants available. We're working with large homeowners associations to get EP controllers installed in the city.
Is this for the common lands or parks?
It's both for common land, homeowners associations, and individual homeowners. There are programs available, and we're right now trying to establish those within the city.
What's the name of that program that you're coming up with?
It's actually the Smart Timer program.
Okay.
Is the name of the program. I might add to that, we're going to be putting out about 1,000 door hangers in the Buck Gully area. Steve can add to it if he feels to do so. We're going to be targeting these homes and associations on Friday, trying to get them to curb urban runoff in that area, because that seems to be a major issue in that area.
And where is this that you're specifically targeting?
Many of the association and residents that are around the Buck Gully area.
Oh, because of the greater stream quantities you're seeing at the bottom there?
Yes.
Correct.
I have another question. Could you explain how we get our water? Metropolitan Water District, how that participates, the Orange County Water District, MODOC?
Sure. Right now, we have two sources of water. One's the Metropolitan Water District with the wholesaler of Metropolitan Water District, Orange County, MODOC. That's who we purchase our surface water from. We purchase 34% of water supplied in our city from them. We produce 64% from our groundwater wells located in Fountain Valley, groundwater basins managed by the Orange County Water District. And the basin pumping percentage is at 64% this year.
Yeah, and I'm going to try and just ask a couple questions there. So the Metropolitan Water District is the one that brings the water down from other parts of the state into this basin, right?
Colorado River and the state project water.
Okay, and about 35% of our water comes from that group.
Source, correct.
And the rest of it is water that we put in our underground reservoir, or we've gotten into the underground reservoir by water reclamation.
It's actually the Santa Ana watershed. It's the Orange County Water Basin, and it's managed by the Orange County Water District. And we produce 64% of our potable water from that source.
And that's pumping of the underground reservoir that's in the northern part of the county, right?
Yes, our wells are located in Fountain Valley. We have 4 wells. They pump up to our 16th Street facility. Then we put it through our distribution system up to Big Canyon, where it's used throughout the city. So, yes.
And Big Canyon serves as our surface reservoir, or how does that fit in?
Big Canyon's actually a 600-acre-foot, 220-million-gallon reservoir, and it's actually acts as our storage and our emergency storage for the city. So, yes.
And we have about what? We have a couple weeks supply only in that, right?
Actually, normal use, we have 7 days emergency supply, and if we were to implement rationing, it could go as high as 30.
How many other cities in the county have anywhere near that amount?
There are none.
Okay.
We probably stand alone, and possibly El Toro. They have a similar size.
On your smart timer, I think it's connected to a weather satellite. I know when you brought your roadshow up to Santa Ana Heights community, I heard the presentation, and maybe for benefit of those listening, you can provide us some more details on this smart timer.
Okay. The program that's being offered right now, there's a couple. There's one that's citywide, where residents can install these smart timer programs. They replace their They have to have an existing program. It has to have a minimal number of valves on that timer. They will get a rebate. I don't know the exact dollar figure for each timer. There is funding that comes from Municipal Water District of Orange County as well as the City of Newport Beach as part of our conservation program. We have a separate program that's going on in the Buck Ellie area where we are trying to encourage, and it's a fully funded program with the City of Newport Beach and MODOC participating in that program. And we're trying to target that area. The ET controller does use web-based information. There can be adjustments made externally by the program manager. It's an overall benefit for both the customer and the city in our efforts to curb urban runoff.
So the timer is synced up with actual or predicted weather conditions so that the actual amount of flow of the water will be more consistent with what happens in sort of instead of a kind of a steady output.
Correct.
Okay. This would be also implemented in the home associations that are, apartments like or condos?
We're not limiting it to anybody.
They have mostly common property, don't they?
Any customer of Newport Beach can participate in the program.
And this is a program that, and the controllers were developed similar to the ones that were developed by the Irvine Ranch Water District and have been tested in the city of Irvine for, the last 4 or 5 years?
Correct. They were one of the cities or areas in Orange County that where this program began. I might add, we are putting an infomercial out on the city's TV network. I don't know when it's going to air. that it will give information to homeowners on this Smart Timer program. A little more detailed questions answered by the company that's providing, and also some of our staff as well.
Councilman Rizzi?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, there is a PSA, a public service announcement that Tim just mentioned. The program for rebate will actually expire on January 31st. So anybody who's interested, and especially homeowner associations, should pay attention to it or call City Hall and just ask for the Smart Timer program. Again, somebody will call you, they'll come out to your property, they'll evaluate it, and you'll per valve, you'll get a certain reimbursement. I think it's $40 per valve toward the cost of the or to the Smart Timer, and then the first 2 years of it's about $4 a month for a Smart Timer to the satellite in the sky, and the program will pay for 2 years' worth. So it's well worth your effort. East Bluff Homeowners Association has installed them. I'm looking at them right now in one of my apartment complexes here in the city, and it appears that at a bare minimum you're going to get about 25% savings in the use of water. Now, how that equates to cost, I'm not sure, but more importantly, it's a conservation component, and that's where this program is, and many programs today are going toward conservation of water.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that has any questions of Mr. Antista or Tim Deutsch? Thank you.
You did good, Tim.
Thank you.
And Pete.
Are there any public comments? Seeing none, I close the public comment period, and what is the desire of the council?
Is there an action?
Yes. I move that we adopt resolution number, whatever,
2005-62.
62, which adopts the updated 2005 Urban Water Management Plan.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries.
City Clerk, could you read the next item?
Item number 26 is council establishment of a City Hall Site Review Committee and a Facilities Finance Review Committee, establishment of guidelines for both committees, including the Newport Village site as a potential City Hall site, and establishment of a process to accept committee applications.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, at the last City Council meeting, which took place 3 weeks ago, the City Council decided rather than move forward with the building of a Civic Center complex on this site, that more process would be done in order to try and build some community consensus. So that decision was to form a City Hall Site Review Committee and a Facilities Finance Review Committee. The Council directed staff to come back with some tight guidelines of how those committees would operate. I had conversations with both the City Council Building Committee and also the Budget Committee, and from those discussions, I am ready to go through tonight the information that is in your staff report regarding parameters for the operation of those two committees. It is pretty laborious information, but it is information that probably the community out there who's watching on television needs to see. So I thought running through this information quickly through a PowerPoint presentation might be the best way to deal with it.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay, the questions before the City Council tonight are, before I'll get to the first PowerPoint slide, is whether to establish a City Hall Site Review Committee and Finance Facilities Review Committee and establish the guidelines for the two committees to function, whether to include the Newport Village site, which is on Avocado, immediately north of the main library or central library, as a potential site for a City Hall Site Review Committee to consider, and whether to establish a process by which applications will be accepted and committee members selected. The mission statement proposed for you tonight for the City Hall Site Review Committee is to identify and assess all reasonable potential sites within the boundaries of Newport Beach for a City Hall facility, and provide a written and oral assessment report to the City Council along with committee recommendations as to the best location or locations for further City Council consideration no later than May 15th of 2006. The process being recommended for the City Hall Site Review Committee is that committee meetings will be open to the public, and city staff will be provided, Committee review of space needs assessment will be the first thing that will take place, because the council believes that the space assessment study that was done in 2001 is a valid study. That there would be not any authorized budget provided to this committee, that the city will provide real estate professional advice, and that advice would be selected by the city council ad hoc members. The committee would disband after the presentation to the City Hall Council. In looking at the needs, the parameters regarding the City Hall needs, that approximately 72,000 square feet of space is needed, and parking for another 230 employees and 70 public parking spaces for a total of 300 spaces is required, that the site should be surrounded by compatible land uses. The site should be available to begin construction or move in if it's an existing structure by July the 1st of 2007. Considerations for the committee to take into consideration is that cost is an important factor in site assessments. The ease of public travel and access to the site is an important consideration. That the site should accommodate all current staff, retain all current departments at the same site, and that the site should not require condemnation of any private property. Further considerations are that the existing structures that could be retrofitted, don't rule those out, and that the City Hall operations are outside the scope of the committee. If the committee wanted to get into that, we could probably have a lengthy term for the committee. So in order to try and clearly define the parameters, operational issues are off of the table. Further consideration for the Site Review Committee is regarding the existing site, and that the constraints associated with selling the existing site, the best use of this current property, including the zoning, the permits that would be required, the EIR process that would need to be involved, the time also that it would take in order to sell this property, rezone it, and whether there would be a need for a green light vote or not. So looking at this current City Hall site and seeing what it would take in order to sell this site and use that money to move to another site is one of those considerations this committee should be looking at. Finally, the report coming to the City Council includes oral and a written report. The written report and oral report should both include the strengths and constraints of each site, the cost, the ease of travel, the central location, timeliness of the move, when it could take place, the current zoning of each site, the design constraints of each site, existing parking for each site, construction issues, and any other issues that might figure into a determination for Council's consideration. And the written report should be submitted to the City Council no later than May the 15th of 2006, and there would be an oral report made by a committee member presenting the same information publicly that would be in the written document. And Mr. Mayor, before we get into the other committee, you may want to, at this time, just at a council level, decide the parameters for this committee before we get into the other one. And then after we get through the other one, also discuss the parameters for that committee before opening it up to the public for comment. It might be easier rather than putting the whole thing on the table and having that discussion.
Okay, council members, Councilmember Hefner.
City Manager, did I miss the box that says how many members and how many council members?
No, that comes at the tail end of this report, and that is the application and also appointment process. It is the recommendation that each committee should be composed of 11 members of the public plus 2 ad hoc city council members.
So you think 13 is a workable number?
Yes.
I mean, okay, I don't have an opinion on that, but that's that would be the total.
Right.
That's our lucky number tonight.
No, I got that.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ridgway.
Yeah, as the being a member of the building committee, I feel like I didn't communicate well, certainly with the city manager. So if you could, Mr. City Manager, go to your page 4A3, City Hall considerations, and I'll kind of repeat on item A3, item A. I want to add to that because I think you picked up well on the existing site the concept of constraint, but did not under the City Hall considerations, and I'll explain this. I'd like to add language where it says, cost considerations are an important factor in site assessment, as well as a constraint analysis taking into consideration the following: availability of land, timeliness of delivery of land, zoning and environmental issues, and last but not least, green light analysis. Again, there are probably, ideally, any number of sites that are out there, but because of the constraints that exist, I think this committee needs to evaluate those constraints. So again, the language that I added was, as well as, under item A constraint analysis taking into consideration the following: 1, availability of existing sites; 2, timeliness of delivery; 3, zoning and environmental issues; and 4, just the green light analysis. So again, we could, you could go out and pick any number of sites, but because of the constraints that are involved, they're probably not viable.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Comments on Councilmember Ridgway's suggestions?
I would support those suggestions as well.
I think what I did, Councilman Ridgway, and I apologize for that, is under H, I was focusing on the committee looking at the current City Hall site and thinking that those same criteria would apply to all of the sites, but I really did not portray that.
I know you did, and when I saw it, I just thought I'll just make that correction tonight.
That's a good one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any objections to including that change in wording? Okay, good.
I would like to ask one question, though, about the number of public and council members. Obviously, we won't have a problem getting 2 council members, and we may not have a problem getting 11 public participants, but what if we don't, or 11, what we deem qualified participants? I mean, are we going to have to come back again, or can we make this up to, or maybe a range or something? 11's a big number, and I know when we have just regular committees and commissions, I mean, we just had a civil service appointment. I don't think we had 11 for that.
I don't think 11 is an ideal number for most committees. I guess what I was seeing, the larger the committee, the more public information is going to be shared. And I think we are looking at having a number of financial and real estate professionals on this, and certainly this community has a number of people in both of those fields. So having 11, if we meet on a weekly basis, and that might happen, I mean, maybe not everybody would be there at the same time, but I think having a little larger committee than normal and working through these pretty technical issues would serve the purposes of this committee pretty well.
Okay, well, then maybe I'm premature in the discussion tonight, but what if we only get 8 applications? Then what do we do?
Well, if you want to say up to or no more than 11.
Or maybe amend the process to allow, if we don't get enough applications, that, because we do have a process whereby they're going to apply and fill out an application and do that. So if we maybe get to the end of the process and we find that we don't have enough qualified applicants, can we have another process where we can go out into the community and request people to be on the commission who may have not have thought to apply or for whatever reason didn't apply?
Yeah, I would support modifying this to say no less than 7 and no more than 11. But I just think the problem is I don't know if you're going to get adequate applicants. I think, to get a good cross-section, you need a minimum of 7. Do you need 11? Probably not. Remember, you got 2 council members, too.
I think that 7 or 11 would apply to both committees, then, is what
Yeah.
I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Good.
I also think you should make it understood at the time that we do seek these candidates that there will be significant number of meetings. It's not going to be 3 meetings and we're going to come to a decision, that they'll probably have to meet at least on a weekly basis, I would think, to get it done in the time frame that we've set up.
I understand that would be a part of their understanding prior to the selection being made.
Councilmember Daigle?
Yes, kind of a basic question. We're approaching this from the analysis of a city hall. Has any thought been given to create some room to consider a civic center, or are we just looking at a city hall?
Well, I think the Civic Center was based upon two other components, and one was a fire station. And if we relocate the City Hall, I think the thinking is that we still want the fire station somewhere in this immediate area. So that component of the complex would be gone. And then the other component was the parking. And it may be that there is a site that would accommodate already 300 parking spaces. So those were the three components, the City Hall, the parking garage, and the fire station, that really made up the Civic Center. And it would be a question at this point then as to whether those components will end up in the same place.
There's also the community center.
The community
center
was
really a
part of
part of
the
the City Hall.
72,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking in terms of would a committee look broadly, let's say, at the police station and the fire station, and what kind of maybe opportunities would exist with those properties?
We at the committee did not go that direction. Did not go that direction. In a civic center, you're thinking of a cultural arts center as a component of that. We really focused it, and even the motion itself focuses itself to City Hall consideration. That's where we went.
Certainly, the new City Hall, should it wind up somewhere else, can, in the event that there is a need for a community center in that area, could, I would imagine, accommodate it. Would be excluded, I wouldn't think.
Councilmember Nichols, you had a question?
Well, I just would caution that I don't think we should make this too tight. You're looking for members that have new ideas that are putting this in. And if we say that it has to be exactly 72,000 feet, if it has to accommodate every employee that's on this site, it's possible that that the people that are looking at this will not come up to that same conclusion. And I'm not sure that they should necessarily.
Well, I know it was the building committee's recommendation that we go forward and look at a City Hall site that would accommodate the employees and the functions that we have here at this site. I think that if we get into a situation to where we ask for people to redesign the entire organization that the city has, that we will never finish our task. There will be any number of recommendations or comments related to well, couldn't we try such and such, so that we wanted to have this look at a site that would be equivalent to what we might put it in this location, someplace else in the city. And I really don't think, at least the building committee's thoughts were that we should consider a reworking of the people that go in the site, in the City Hall.
Mr. Mayor, I would just, again, as a chairman of that committee, and I'm going to repeat, Mayor Heffernan really made it tight at the last meeting. He said, hey, we're just going to look at the process of location of City Hall. We're not going to redesign. We're not going to change the operation. We're just going to look at the location. And that's what we voted on at the last hearing. And I think, and we read it, Homer brought it to us, and I think this document focuses very well just the locational criteria, and that's really what we're charged with. So there are limitations by definition and by the motion that was made at the last meeting.
Mr. Sellers.
Yeah, I'd like the staff city manager to comment on recommendation number 2. As a member of the building committee, I was not in favor of that recommendation. I'll make some comments on that later after the public testimony, but before we have that, I'd like the city manager just to explain the rationale for including that site, if you would.
Okay, wait a second. Recommendation 2, what?
That's the Newport Village site as a potential City Hall site for consideration.
Okay.
It's recommendation number 2 on the first page.
I thought that we would comment on that after we determine the committees and have that a total separate item.
I thought it was the recommendation of
It's recommendation 2, but I think that one of the things that we were at least starting out to do was to go through and inform the function of the committees, determine what they're going to do, and then that's a separate item that we would discuss, because it definitely is an action item that has to be discussed and voted on. Okay. Should we get public comment at this time on the formation of our committee?
I think it would be better if we could go to the second committee then and have the public have comment on both committees.
Okay. Are we ready to go to the Finance Committee? All right, let's go forward.
Okay, the Facilities Finance Review Committee, the mission statement for this committee is, after reviewing the 20-year facility needs
John.
of the city and the city's financial capacity to meet those needs, to make recommendations to the City Council on financing, budgeting, and revenue methods which will allow those needs to best be addressed for the continuation of high-quality city services to meet the community's needs. Again, process for this committee would be the committee would be open to the public. City staff would be provided. The committee would initially review the 20-year facility needs list and cost estimates that would be provided by the staff and make sure that any additions or subtractions to that list are taken care of, and then they would work from that. And review methods used in the past for financing facilities. Continuing the process, we would review current and long-term financial status of the city, review the complete listing, and hear an explanation of all of the financing alternatives available to public agencies. And the committee would disband after the presentation to the City Council. The consideration parameters for this committee are proposed to look at the potential rise and fall of interest rates and what effect that would have on the city's ability to finance facilities, look at the short and long-term cost of labor and materials, look at revenue enhancement alternatives, if it wanted to make any recommendations on that, look at the proposed initiative to require public vote before entering into certain kinds of debt and what effect that could have on our ability to meet the facility needs. Also, how to stagger the timing of facility replacement over the next 20 years. And one of the considerations would be for the ease of comparison to use today's dollars in estimating future needs. The report would be much in the same format as the previous committee, but it would include long and short-term financial ability of the city to replace or refurbish facilities. It would identify assumptions key to making financial assessments. It would look at the implications of the potential initiative, and it would make recommendations as to how the city should position itself to meet the community's facilities needs. Written and oral report. The written report submitted to the City Council by May the 15th, and a committee member to provide an oral report to the City Council shortly thereafter. And then if I could just follow up and conclude my staff report in talking about the selection of the committee members. What is being recommended is that each committee would have between 7 then and 11 members of the public and 2 ad hoc council members who would not vote but who would be there for participation. Applications would be available at the city clerk's office, and she would use the same applications as our candidates use for board and commission appointments. The closing date for the applications is recommended to be noon on January the 6th. The selection process then would be determined based upon how many applicants there were at your next council meeting on January the 10th. And I know it's a quick time frame, but hopefully then council could appoint those members, both of those committees, at the January 24th meeting. And that concludes my staff report.
Mr. Bubad, did you say that the 2 council members would just be there for advice and would not vote? Is that what your thought process was?
That is the recommendation to the city council, because I think the purpose of these committees is to try and get a community sense in looking at issues fresh, and not to have the city council sway them in terms of which ways to go, but offer information that they know about sites or about financing that could further their jobs. I think if it looks like the city council has basically commandeered these committees and is strongly influencing them, then we lose the credibility that we want these committees to have with the community by being basically community-run.
Hey, does the council have any thoughts on that?
Yes. I mean, who's going to run the meeting?
I think the committee would select a chairperson.
And what's the purpose of having the council members on the committee?
Well, I think the city council would want to know what these committees were doing and to make sure that there was good communication, that it wasn't just staff representing the city and attending these meetings, but having some city council people there to make sure that that link was there between the city council and the committees and staff in order to foster good communication.
But isn't that exactly what you want to avoid? Because that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to commandeer the committee. They're the ones who are going to know staff. And the problem is, you're going to end up with the same result. I mean, if you want a net result out of this thing, and you're going to have, it's kind of hard for any of us just to be sitting on our hands during a meeting and saying, and how do you ever pick a chairman? That'll be a very potentially hot topic, because you might have somebody, there might be a group that's for and against the project, and that whoever is chairman will have clout in this regard.
Well, I just don't think that you should have the city manager attending these meetings and basically give them the rules as to what is and isn't going to be. I think the city council member or members needs to be there in order to make sure that staff isn't overly influential in the way that these committees operate.
But how is this any different than the Marina Park Committee? Wasn't that run by a councilman? And wasn't there a councilman on both sides of that issue? And didn't that committee work well?
Well, personally, I don't think the city council person should be the chair of these committees. I think we're setting them up to be community committees with city council people as being resources to these committees.
Well, how is this any different than Marina Park Committee? That went through an election cycle. There was a very contested issue, and we had a citizen committee result from that to try to do the same thing, to make a recommendation. But as I understand it, was run by a councilman. Isn't that right? Wouldn't one of you folks run it?
That's correct. I guess that the reason why I'm asking the question is I think that this is something we need to discuss.
Yes, this is the ground, part of the ground rules.
Well, I guess I had assumed that it was going to be run similar to the Marina Park Committee, and that one of the council members appointed to it would be chairing the committee. So that's kind of always been my assumption when we started to recommend setting these up.
Are there any other comments from council?
I would agree with that. I think a councilman who's appointed the chairman has a responsibility basically to try to be as neutral as he can, and I think on Marina Park, Mayor Brumberg certainly did that. He ran a fairly, he took a neutral position. So I think.
Anybody else like to weigh in? Mr. Nichols?
I think we need a little more flexibility here. We have excellent members in the community that have these specialty abilities, and maybe they would be better than the people on the committee from the council. I don't know. It seems to me that what we're looking at is to see is what we've done our best shot, or is there another way that's equally good or better? And
are you suggesting that the up to 11 public members is not going to give you that type of cross section?
I'm just suggesting that possibly some of those people have more leadership ability, more background in handling this kind of a job than would the committee members that are councilmen. I don't think any of us is an architect. Any of us has the put together a large complex before. I'm not sure that we've thought about possibly some of the possible travel, the possible location problems that you would have. Many people can walk out, because that's what they've done all their lives, and see these things and concept them, or maybe give the alternates, and people can make good judgment decisions from it, not necessarily pointing one direction or another, but guiding it as they would as an architect or something. And I think we really need to look at this to see, okay, is what we have now
Councilman Nichols?
optimal, or is something better there?
I think that we really have a choice here to where City manager is recommending that the council members be ad hoc and not really have much part of it. The building committee members and a couple member up here are saying that the council members should have a part in it. I think that all of what you have just described is what we're trying to get from this committee. And so that I guess the real issue is, if a council member is really the chairman of the committee, how would that impact the ability to get the broad range of comments in? I think that the council member might perhaps have a good chance of receiving the information and being a good coordination with the staff member to where can work towards providing the input that's necessary. Councilmember Daigle?
Yes, I see the job of the chairperson as running the committee, and certainly Mayor Heffernan and others have a lot of skills running committees, so that's really what is at task here. You know, someone doesn't have to be an architect to run a committee, so I would support a council member having that function.
Okay, shall we? All right. Anybody else like to weigh in on this present time?
To me, I guess we really need to look at why are we forming these committees. I mean, council members have already, all of us have had 2 years to look at all these things and make decisions. And as I sense it, we're setting up the committees because we want independence, we want the judgment of the community, we want the buy-in of the community for this. And as much as I hate to let the committee go it alone, because you never know what you're going to come back with, I think that that's the only way that you're going to be able to legitimately say to the community that this is the community's will or decision or judgment. And so, I don't know, I guess maybe and I surprised myself because I didn't think I'd be thinking that, but, you know, otherwise you just open yourselves up to the people who are against the project, the City Hall project, coming back and saying it was a council-appointed committee, the council members were on the committee, the council members chaired the committee, the result was predetermined, and if they don't like the result. And so, and there's really no getting around that, you know, that perception. And so, as I said 3 weeks ago when we discussed it, we'll be just wasting 3.5, 4 months, because if we come back with the same decision to put City Hall here, it's just going to say, oh, it was a rubber stamp, and we'll be back to where we were. So I guess I'm leaning in favor of no council members. Just pick a committee, like we have GPAC, and they work with staff, and we've relied on GPAC to come back with recommendations to us. And we've even said as council members that we need the support of GPAC and we don't want to deviate from GPAC's recommendations too much, because we need them to help us get that general plan approved. So I think a lot of the lessons that we're learning over there, I think, apply to these two committees as well.
Councilman Ridgway?
Yeah, I understand what Councilmember Rosansky is saying. First of all, you're not going to get buy-in from a 7 to an 11-member committee on a City Hall site. You're just not. They're going to disagree. I'll bet you have 11 different opinions, period.
I agree with you.
Okay,
I
I think that you and I were on the short end of the
exactly,
boat, and I just think this is a futile effort to I guess soothe some people's perception about process. But I do think a councilman has to be there to at least keep the focus of the committee. I can see that committee going off on tangents immediately. So there is a focus, and the focus on one is location, and the other is future facilities. We have an aging facilities in the community, like we have at the Sand District. They're 40 and 50 years old, and we have to fix them. They're going to have to be rehabilitated. So it's really, without somebody there to keep the focus, and I don't think a staff member is going to get the respect that a council member gets. So I think put a councilman there, put him as ad hoc, and put him in the back of the room, but somebody's got to keep the focus of that committee going.
At this time, I'd like to open this up to the public, and we will discuss this further after we get public input. Yes, Mr. Selich?
Yeah, could I just make one comment? I guess we were talking about the Finance Committee. And Again, I'm under the assumption that we did this report that the committee was not going to be doing any prioritization of these capital improvement needs. Am I assuming that correctly?
Well, in order to determine when they're going to be staggered as to when they can be afforded, I think some prioritization is going to be required.
Okay, and then the staff is going to present an initial prioritization, and then this committee is going to work from that, or how's it going to be done?
That's the way that I would see it done.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, another question in that regard. Are we looking just as far as future costs, capital improvements? Are we talking about our trend for rising employee costs, retired medical, everything in the pot, where all our costs in the city are going up? And also on the other side, where income sources will be on a projected basis?
Well, certainly as far as our ability to afford, that picture needs to be painted for the committee members, and that's something that staff will do. And
No, but that's something they're going to look at. I mean, that's my whole
that's something
point.
they're going to look at, but as far as the financing of facilities, it's basically going to be facilities. But that is going to be money that is going to be available to be applied to facilities or something else, given increased cost other places that are going to have to be paid for.
Well, in other words, they're going to be looking at the entire budget.
Yes, sir.
Good, thanks.
Okay, I have one other further question.
Councilman Rosinski.
Under this process here, you talk about that the committee is, or the staff is going to prepare this list. How long do you anticipate it's going to take staff to prepare that list and the estimates on the costs of the items on the list?
Well, I would think that we would certainly have that list by when the appointments are made to the committee, the second meeting in January. They aren't going to be exact costs, but they will be ranges within, say, if it's a fire station, it's going to be $6 or $7 million, and it'll be identified as far as the location is concerned, so that we can have, not specific costs, not costs that have been bid, but rough estimates that will serve as a magnitude for the committee.
Yeah, I'm just more concerned about the timing of the information. And I guess lastly, is there any particular reason why this was moved to May 15th now for report back? Because May 15th, we're already going to have had our council meeting, I think, that month. So we won't be seeing this until the end of May at the earliest.
We talked about April. Quite candidly, that was a timeline that Mayor Heffernan had suggested.
I believe that I made the recommendation that it be around May 1st.
Well, John said April.
But I think, what we're looking at is the application process being extended out another 2 to 3 weeks so that we don't get caught into the vacation time. So having applications due by January the 6th and appointments made the second meeting in January, I think, pushed us a little further.
We were trying for the committee to have at least 3 months. If we make our appointments last meeting in January, you really, to get started up everything, that's February, March, April. So May 1st is right around that 90-day period.
When is our first council meeting?
Well, let's say May 1st then.
In May?
Or, let's just say May 1st. Whatever that is.
That's one of our options.
Okay, good.
Does
May 1st is a Monday? So our first meeting's the 9th. Well, if they report back by May 1st, that'll give us a week to absorb the information and discuss it at our May 9th council meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an item that we can firm up after public comments. I'd like to get comments on the formation of the two committees. We will not be discussing the park location site until after we make our recommendations and determinations related to the committees, and then we will have a separate discussion of whether or not the site northerly of the library will be considered as one of the sites that's available for evaluation. Public comments are open. Would anybody like to say something on the committees? Okay. I'm closing it. What's the pleasure of the council related to the things we've been discussing? I think one of the items is whether or not it should be a May 1st or May 15th. Should we straw vote that? Mr. Nichols, what do you think?
I'm not sure, but it needs to be in May, certainly.
Okay, we have an uncertain.
We need to have 3 months to look at that. I think that's the minimum.
Councilmember Daigle, what's your thoughts?
I think May 1, I mean, that's kind of what we see, the motion seemed to be, adhere to that.
May 1, you're saying?
Okay,
May 1.
Mr. Ridgway?
You said May 1.
May 1? Okay, Mr.
May
Councilmember-
1.
May 1.
That's 4. John, what do you say?
Don't need to.
It's safe.
Okay. I'm trying to do it the way you did. When you got to 4, we stopped. Okay, the other item is what the role of the council should be on the makeup of the committee. Excuse me for just a minute. Ms. Johnson?
Do you want me to wait?
Is this related to the forming of the committees, or?
No, it isn't really. It is and it isn't. I mean, a lot of us are here tonight because of the location, and I'd like to know when that location issue is going to be discussed.
It will be discussed right after we finish this committee discussion
Tonight.
here. Tonight.
Thank you.
It's going to be probably within the next 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Okay. The makeup of the committee related to the function of the council members.
Well,
Mr.
Well,
Heffernan.
first off, my observation tonight, and this is a pretty contested issue in town, we talk about the formation of the committee, and no one's here to talk about it at all. It's a continuation of the lack of input we've had. So what happens if we can't staff this committee? What if we get people that apply that you look at their resume and you go, whoa, this isn't going to work at all? I mean, in other words, or you don't get enough. Well, what are our options? Or do we just visit that at the time?
Well, I think that was exactly the point I tried to make earlier, is that to get 11 quality people,
No, I agree with you.
qualified
7.
candidates, well,
7.
11 was what it was initially, is going to be very difficult. Even 7 is going to be difficult.
Yes, I
And
agree.
so I think we do need a process, which I think we decided to put off more to the end, but a process where we're going to be able to maybe nominate people or go out in the community and solicit their participation, twist a few arms to get them on the committee. I mean, quite frankly, I'm discouraged that the people, how many people do we have here last time? 20 people in the audience, about 17 spoke against City Hall in one form or another. I don't see, one of those faces here tonight. Where are those people? Those are the people that we're forming these committees for, and it's very discouraging to see that, well, they're going to come back in 4 months and shoot down what the committee has done.
Yeah, those 17 people aren't here because they got their committee.
Yeah.
We got a delay. That's all this is about.
Gentlemen, let's get back on the issue here. Let's discuss whether or not we want to have council
So we can't
members
get
on
focused.
the committee.
All right, I agree. Well, listen, if you want to float it out there and have no councilman on there, Mr. Rosansky, I agree with you. None.
Okay, so we have a none. Councilman Selage.
I support doing it like we did in Marina Park.
Okay.
Mr. Ridgway, Mr. Rosansky.
I go with the GPAC. None.
Okay, Mr. Ridgway.
I go with a councilman ad hoc as non-voting. Is that clear?
Is that kind of a Marina Park? Is that what you're talking about?
Marina Park, the council members actually voted, but they acted as the chairman and sort of facilitated.
I never voted, not once.
Okay, so
I
we're
don't
basically
think
talking about Marina Park.
Actually, we didn't vote on that
No,
many things, but
we did, as council members, we never voted. We just listened and yeah, Robin was there.
As I recall, of course, I didn't go to all the meetings, but I think it was set up as an advisory, so there wasn't necessarily voting. It was taking in information and giving information back as far as the process goes. Did they?
Yeah, it was, and we
Yeah.
made
That was the way it
recommendations
was run.
on various different alternatives.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Selage.
Yeah, just to clarify my position, I would support what Councilman Ridgway said.
Okay, so we got 2 and 2. Councilmember Daigle.
I'll go with Councilmember Selich and Ridgway, their plan.
Mr. Nichols.
Let Mr. Heffernan comment first.
I already have. I said I agree with Mr. Rosansky. Let's have no city councilman on it. Let it float.
Well, I have the idea that it would be good to have a couple councilmen on the committee, but I don't necessarily think they should run it. I think that if they're the best people for the job, then that's
for
Okay, that's essentially what the city manager had recommended from the very beginning, was that we have two council members there to answer questions, but that there would be, the chairmanship would be from the committee members. Okay, that's 4. So
What the majority is for, is what you said.
that's right. We've agreed to make it 2 council members ad hoc. Are there any other items that you want to discuss related to the formation of the committee, its function, its duties, and what could be considered?
Okay, I'm going to hazard a motion on that where we've done the straw votes, except for the Newport Village site, which Don's going to reopen.
That's item 2.
That's item 2. So, I'm going to make a motion pursuant to the straw votes that we just had.
Excuse me, that's item 3, I guess. So you're voting on item 1 and 2.
No, 1 and 3.
Okay. Excuse me.
1
I
and
apologize.
3. Okay, so that's my motion, and that's it.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Now, I'm having just a little bit of problems. What we're talking about is that
The recommendation right here, 1 and 3, pursuant to the straw vote that we just took. We're going to defer number 2 to the, right now.
We're establishing
Right.
the 2 committees as we have modified it.
As we've straw
Okay.
voted.
All in favor of Mr. Ridgway's motion?
Right. Let's just take the vote.
Okay. That's not all in favor, but excuse me, let's vote. I'm new at this. You're going to have to excuse me.
Okay, I hear you.
With Mayor Pro Tem Rosansky voting no, the motion carries.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, from this discussion, I take it that the council would like the committees to meet weekly.
Yes.
That's what I've heard thus far.
The advertisement has to make sure you clarify that this is a time commitment.
Okay. One of the things that, all right, the next item that we're going to discuss is whether or not the committee that is looking at City Hall location sites, whether or not that committee is going to consider the site northerly of the library, which is called the Newport Village site. And City Manager, are there any constraints related to that site or anything that you would like to say about that site before we get started?
Mr. Mayor, maybe something that we didn't cover, who is going to screen the applications, and who's going to narrow the funnel to get the people on the committee? Or is that something we're going to decide next month?
The recommendation was that we wait and see how many applications we get, and then you decide what that process is going to be at the next meeting prior to the appointment of those committee members on the 24th.
So we'll do this in January, and will all the, I mean, do we have a process, because we're going to burn a month off here, to know what we're going to be doing, so people can apply, that you'll be able, somebody's going to screen them, or we're just going to collect them, and then we're going to address at the first meeting in January?
Well, I think the problem here is you don't know how many applicants you're going to receive. So let's say you have 30 applications for each committee. That's going to be a major consideration into what process you go through. If you have 9 applications, then that's going to be a major consideration for the process you go through, too. You may want to interview everybody. I don't know. It just seems like rather than now, before you know how many applicants you're going to receive, that you probably would want to wait and form the process based upon how many apply.
The way you wrote the staff report, though, it says here that appoint the members at its regular. The city manager recommends a deadline for applications to be set for January 6th. Okay, so the applications come by the 6th?
Yes.
Is that right? The desire to appoint the county members, well, and then you go on to say that we're going to make the appointments at the January 24th meeting.
Right.
So are we going to, but you also talk about a council interview committee, time to interview the applicants, develop some recommendations, and time to be included in the January 10th agenda, which means that the interview committee needs to be set up before January 10th, and we're not having another meeting to determine who those interviewees are going to, or council members are going to be.
Well, maybe I wrote that poorly, but what I meant was at the January 10th meeting, you would decide whether you had an interview panel or not.
And at that time, we would appoint the council members who would do the interviewing?
Yes.
Okay. So
It's good.
So that's how we'll handle it.
It's good. Got a plan.
Okay. Mr. City Manager, would you discuss the things that we're going to be discussing on the park site?
Well, I think there are some topographical issues, and I'll turn it over to Steve Batum to talk about maybe heights and also volumes of soil that would have to be removed in order to utilize that site for a city hall complex.
Yes, thank you, Homer. Mr. Mayor, before I go into that, I just should kind of do a little recap. As you're aware, we've been looking at this site for a park for some time. It's essentially partially a restoration of an existing kind of a wild a natural park and a combination of a kind of an open passive park that folks can use, which would also include parking, which is needed for the current library. And looking in this site, there are several constraints. I guess probably the one of most interest to most folks is the view plane. And in general, we have a map that ranges the different heights that have been established in the view shed. And I guess kind of simplify it, we could say that most of the height, if you base it from Avocado Avenue, you're looking at about a maximum of about 35 feet from the elevation of Avocado Avenue would roughly give you the view shed that is the maximum view height, the maximum height that you could have and still maintain, stay under that view shed. The difference between the view sheds and the current topographic features, it varies depending on where you are on the site, but it's anywhere from 5 foot to 15 foot. Which essentially means that quite a bit of property or earth would have to be excavated from this site in order to build a suitable City Hall site. The overall property is about 12 acres, and we're thinking that in order to properly construct a City Hall, we probably need a very absolute minimum of 5 acres, which would kind of mean that we could probably develop on the lower part of the site south of Farallon Avenue. I guess if you could extend Farallon Avenue, it kind of bisects the site. So you could look at the lower part of the site as a potential site. And we're probably looking in the neighborhood of excavating an average of about 25 feet of dirt in that area, which equates to about 275,000 to 300,000 cubic yards, which is a substantial number. We require quite a bit of truck trips to move that dirt and to move it off-site, and the cost would be dependent upon how far you have to truck that dirt. There's also some other issues on the site. As I mentioned, the kind of the natural arroyo in the northerly portion is actually a surface drainage course, and that surface drainage course does a lot to recharge the groundwater in that area. And as you may be aware, the groundwater at the library site, which currently has a basement, has a sump pump in that, and it runs fairly constantly. So groundwater is a consideration for this site as well. So there are a lot of obstacles and constraints to this site just from the physical nature, but it can be done, but it could be rather costly.
I have a question.
Councilmember Saxby.
Can you? I don't know if this is for Steve or for Robin, but can you explain the legal mechanism by which we are constrained to those height limitations, if there is one?
I'm not aware of one. I can't say that there is not one, but I'm not aware of a height limitation.
I believe these view planes were established during the construction of the library.
The view planes were established long before that.
Was it before
Patty
that?
Can you give us a history of the view plane establishment?
She knows better than I do.
Yes, the Newport Center site plan ordinance was adopted, I think, in about 1968, subsequent to a vote of the people to reject a civic center property in the Farallon Drive area. It is a non-codified ordinance that establishes an angular view shed from the corner of Crown Drive and I'm not sure what the other street is, in the Harborview area, down to the house at the corner of Coast Highway and Marine Avenue in Irvine Terrace.
And if you, that particular plane, if you were to stand up on top of the site and you look at the two pylons that are at the entrance to Newport Center, they are just below the view plane by maybe 5 feet.
Additionally, not only are buildings subject to the site plan ordinance, but landscaping also. So this requires the Irvine Company and others in Newport Center to trim their trees, and also all of the palm trees in those landscaping arc areas where the pylon signs are have to be removed and moved and kind of dug down further about every 5 years as the trees grow.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Badham, are there any, I want to say traffic constraints, but that's probably a little beyond an initial evaluation at this time.
What's a non-codified ordinance?
That one I can answer. I was not familiar with the viewplane ordinance. A non-codified ordinance merely means that the ordinance was adopted by the council, but it is not codified in the city's municipal code. It doesn't have any less force and effect of law. It's just not a published ordinance.
So do we, as city council, have the ability to modify that or eliminate it?
That question, I don't know what you do. Okay, so as long as it wasn't, I didn't know if it was initiated by an initiative or not. Yes, you would have the ability to modify that ordinance.
And we wouldn't need the permission of the Irvine Company or anybody else?
No.
They'd probably be happier.
It's news to me. Okay.
I'm sure that we would have significant comments from some of the residences that have depended on that.
I'm sure we'll have significant comments from the residents tonight.
So if you want to go there, that's fine.
I'm just seeking information. I mean, we're talking about this, and we're talking about eliminating a potential site here from the committee, which I believe has been the #1 site referenced by people who want City Hall to be somewhere else. So I think we need to make sure that all the information is out on the table when we do that.
Good. Councilmember Nichols?
I would like to just point out that this may be the view plane, but the actual trees that are out there right now in Irvine Terrace, along even Newport, along PCH, are much higher than that view plane, and are getting into it right now. So I'm not sure that this is I'm not trying to say this isn't a restraint, and certainly believe it should be looked at, but I'm also saying that there are other things that have not been kept to that restraint, and we should be very well aware of them.
I have a question for our city attorney. At this stage, we're looking at an analysis of these properties. I mean, we're not looking to say we're going to go there. We just want an analysis, what are the constraints, and so on.
At this stage on this particular property that we're discussing tonight, I think that the Public Works Director just gave some general information on the physical constraints. I don't think that we intended to have a full analysis at this point in time on what would be, whether that site would be buildable or not. That would be your decision tonight on whether it's included or not included in the determination.
Okay, but the work of the committee would be an analysis.
Correct.
Right.
Thank you.
I have another question of
Councilmember
and I don't know, maybe I missed it. Did you say what the cost of moving 275,000 yards of dirt would be?
Well, it's kind of really based on how far it has to go. I mean,
Just give me a ballpark. Don't.
$2 million to $5 million.
Okay,
depending
thank you.
how far
Well, it's a minimum of $8 a foot, a yard, times 300,000, so it's 2.5.
Okay, well,
Plus
that's within 2 to 5 million.
2.5 to 5.
Yeah, and that's 3,000 truckloads.
Obviously, we'd have to do a lot, more in-depth analysis to give you some.
Thank you.
Can I add something? As a comparison, isn't this Gateway project proposing to move 90,000 cubic yards?
Yes.
I think that's the number that's in the staff. So this would be what? How many?
Be 3 times that.
3 times that amount?
At least 3 times.
Good, thanks.
Are we talking about just general things or just the physical constraints of the site?
We're talking about the general things related to the site and we are going to take public testimony in just a minute about what the other residents say. So,
Okay, well, I guess what my comment is on this thing, and again, I'm not obviously I'm not a supporter of the committees and going down this road. And I do believe that the committees, if they're going to look at sites, then all the sites should be open. However, the one thing that hasn't been talked about, and maybe you're planning on talking about it, was that we do have a significant donor lined up to build this park. And so, but for the money, I'd say let's throw this site into the mix, because, yeah, it might cost more, or maybe we have to amend ordinances or things like that, and that would create other problems. Those are all things that the committee would have to look at, certainly, and weigh in their analysis when they balance this site or that site and determine whether a site's feasible or not. And if they determine that, yeah, paying another $3 million to move 275,000 yards of dirt makes that site a feasible site, well, then so be it. Or bucking residents and amending our ordinance and, doing away with the height restriction on maybe just this piece of property is doable, then so be it. But the real thing here is the donor, the money that we would be losing potentially if we don't exclude this site and move forward with the plans that we have for that piece of property. And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind here. I mean, that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, really, when it comes to this site. Do we want to walk away from a potential $1.2 million to build a park here? And do we really, even if we do include the site, do we really think anything is ever going to be built here other than a park? I mean, in your hearts of hearts, if you think that the park's never going to be built here, it'd be a shame to walk away from the significant donation that's on the table right now. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ridgway.
Yeah, I think the only issue here is analysis. Not that we're voting for it, but just putting it into the mix. I think when the council was here last time, and certainly I was on the short end of that vote and said, hey, we got to take this out to analysis of all alternate sites. I don't think that's fair, number one, to take it out. Number two, I don't think this council or anybody should be held hostage to somebody's estate planning. I don't care what it is. Quite candidly, the motion was made to do an analysis. Now, if the committee, let the committee do the analysis. We're sitting up here and analyzing it right now. I don't think that's fair to the committee. Okay. The very process that you guys wanted to set up, now you're backtracking on it. I just tell you.
Okay. Before we make the ultimate decision on this, let's get some public input.
Let me, if I could weigh in on this. I was the fellow early on that proposed that site. Got no real support up here, not faulting anybody for it. And when I came public with it, one of the speakers tonight gave me a new earlobe about the history of the site in no uncertain terms about the history of it and why it was supposed to be a park. And also told me about the donor that was pending to give the gift. I then talked to staff. It gave me the history of the site. This is midsummer. They said it's always been a park. So I did what I thought was right as the mayor. I went and talked to the donor, and I said, the donor, I was wrong. I was off base. I didn't know the history. I was straightened up first by Deborah Allen. I was straightened up then by staff. I'm wrong. If you're a donor, then this thing's going to be a park, and you have my say-so that it's going to be a park. So clearly, I cannot vote for including this when I gave a guy my word that this was going to be a park and we were going to accept his money, if it all worked out that way. So that's my 2 cents on it. But that only has to do with me, and if I was off track, then I'm off track, but I've got to vote, well, when we get to vote, no, to include this.
Okay, let's take some public comments related to whether or not we should include this as a committee consideration for a future City Hall site.
This is only, don't count any time, this is only a point of information. Number one is that this, in your council staff, in your agenda, and some of you councilmen up there call this Newport Village. This is not Newport Village. This is Newport Center Park, and that's a big difference when you're advertising this in the future, when you're talking about this site in the future. There is no such thing as Newport Village. This is voted by the council.
Could
to
you
be-
please identify yourself?
Bernie Svalstad, pardon me, I'm sorry. This is only point of information, and I'll talk later about the subject. But I think that when you do agendas like this, when the council talks about stuff that you voted on, it's important that people know, and it's one of the problems with this site, that it's a park, and so I recommend
Your
in
time is
future,
running, Mr. Falstad.
Not on this. This is a point of information. I'm going to talk later about that. I think the agenda is done improperly.
Good evening. Good evening. Congratulations, Mayor Webb.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to see you sitting there. I am Deborah Allen. I serve on your Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission. I chair your Park Development Committee. And I would like to second Mr. Svalstad's comment. On June 28th, this city council named that area, which is between Avocado and MacArthur, north of the library, Newport Center Park, by duly appointed vote 6-0. So I think it is disingenuous to now go back and call it by a former name that you voted to change that name on June 28th. And I think you need to refer to it as Newport Center Park. I have been working to develop Newport Center Park for many years. I also served on the Citizens Committee, chaired by Mr. Svalstad, that raised the money to develop this park. In 1993, the Irvine Company gave this land to the city of Newport Beach for a park. This park site is unique. Spawn, the city, the library, pro-growth groups, anti-growth groups have all come together and agreed on a plan and a design for a park on this site. It offers 128 new and much-needed parking spaces for the library and an outdoor circular seating area for library programs. 1/3 of the 12.2 acres is turf grass. It's not some kind of environmental area or something that you can't walk on. It's grass that's mowed, a play area with benches, meandering pathways to walk and throw a Frisbee, or have a brown bag lunch while enjoying some of the most magnificent views of the city and the harbor. The site also, the top third, has a beautifully groomed and improved environmental area, which will be an educational highlight for environmental areas throughout the city. To develop this site will cost, as you've discussed, $1.2 million. And our Citizens Committee found a donor who is offering you all that money as a gift. But for tax reasons, the donor needs to give the money now. Whether Mr. Ridgway thinks it's important or not to be involved in somebody's family planning, we have found a donor who is offering you a gift of $1.2 million to build this park. However, if you put the park into the City Hall study, we may very well lose this donation because the donor needs, for tax reasons, to give the money now. The plans, even the working drawings for the development of this park, are almost completely finished. This is not some future park. We were ready to put this thing out to bid in February. The park would have been built in this centennial year. I just plead with you, do not take this park and turn it into an office building. And whatever you do, don't forfeit $1 million to gift to create this park by putting it into some bureaucratic study. Thank you. I can answer any questions if you like.
And you're not impassioned about this at all?
Not at all.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Good evening. My name is Val Scoro. I live in Corona Del Mar, and checking on my map, I think it's still part of the city of Newport Beach, so I guess I'm entitled to speak. No, I also concur that we should delete this site from consideration as far as the location goes. As a past alumni of the PB&R Commission, I've been on was on the commission for 8 years. I was chair of the committee that had the outreach programs to determine what was going to be in the park, and the outreach was extensive. It was so extensive that I was criticized by Marie Knight's predecessor for spending too much money to go out to the public at large to get feedback what should be on the park. And we had extensive outreach, and what is very important as far as the park goes, it was outreach of the residents. We didn't have the Coastal Commission involved or any outside agencies, so we had a complete outreach program, and it's based on this information that the conceptual plans were prepared for the park and the cost estimates, and the park is ready to go. So why should we risk losing a donor when the park is ready to go? It could be something that we could be proud of and complete it in the centennial year, and it would be a lasting landmark and something that will be here for posterity and everybody can be proud of. So why delay this? Let's make it a grand moment for the centennial year and have it completed by the end of the year, and everybody can go out at the park dedication, and we can have a jolly good time, so to speak. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Karen Tringali, and I'm here tonight representing the Corona Del Mar Residents Association and the members. As you know, we sent out an email to our membership the other day, and in under 24 hours, we had an overwhelming and statistically significant response in support of preserving the Newport Center Park site as a park site. We had 95% of the respondents in favor of preserving that site for that use. If it's the city and the residents' agreement that we should pursue other sites, we have a compelling and clear mandate from the residents of Corona Del Mar that the Newport Center area should be preserved for the park site. Newport Beach is a destination spot not for our government buildings, but for our beaches and our parks and the resort amenities that we offer. And, you know, from time and time again, our residents step up to the plate and offer their time and offer their dollars in support of making this community and preserving its unparalleled beauty. If I have a few more minutes, I'd like to just share some of the comments that we've received so far from our emails from our resident members. As you drive down MacArthur toward PCH, the low natural vegetation of that area plus the view of the ocean over it permits a gracious and lovely introduction to Corona Del Mar. Tremendous ocean views coming down from MacArthur are the signature of Corona Del Mar and should not be disturbed. The area affords a superb view and peacefulness that would complement the busy area of Fashion Island. In addition, numerous medical buildings surround the area, and a passive view park is a gift to those with medical traumas and challenges, either as a place to go and digest bad news or perhaps a place to go and celebrate good news and healing. The passive park would also complement the library's use, and additional revenues could be created by folks who purchase food and books from Fashion Islands and surrounding businesses. Developing the passive park sends a strong message to the residents that the city, in fact, hears, responds, and appreciates donations of dollars and time by its residents and friends. So again, Corona Del Mar Residents Association is responding significantly and in a clear mandate to preserve that area for park usage.
Mr. Tringali, you mentioned you had 95% respondents. Was that 10 people or 150 people?
Well, in under 24 hours, we had 10% of our membership, which right now is about 30 respondents.
Okay, thank you.
And be sure to visit our website at www.cdmra.org.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak on this?
I'm Elaine Linhoff. I live in Balboa. I think definitely Newport Center Park is not even a potential site for the City Hall. I mean, I don't think you have to feel hypocritical about eliminating it because it's already a park, and the city needs parks. We're deficient in park space, and to even think about eliminating this park is unthinkable to me. Just as an aside, off the subject, I don't very often agree with Mr. Ridgway lately, but I thought his case that he presented last time about the location of the City Hall was right on. I think this is the only sensible location that I can see for a park. But if you want to, I mean, that decision's already been made. But don't even consider Newport Center Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Jan Banderswood. I live in Newport Heights. I would also agree with eliminating this site from consideration for a city hall, and I ask that you keep the faith with the people. As you know, you made an agreement with the Irvine Company in 1992 called the CIOSA Agreement. This is a development agreement. This is a contract that you made with the people of the city of Newport Beach and the Irvine Company that allowed the Irvine Company unchallenged ability to develop their properties. In return, that the Irvine Company dedicate certain properties in the city as open space and also for circulation improvements. If you approve this open space dedication, you would be abrogating this CIOSA agreement. You would be losing the faith of the people. And I urge you to keep the faith. We need to keep these areas as open space because open space is at a premium. We're losing it, and now we're losing it because you want to change an agreement that you made in 1992. You want to go back on that agreement, and you want to put City Hall on a dedicated open space park site. Not only would you be doing that, but you'd be required to have a general plan amendment, a zone change. You'd have to do an environmental impact report. You would be causing a delayed project. I mean, the whole proposal would be a very lengthy proposal and would make this thing long and drawn out. No doubt you would be losing the donor money that is now being offered to the city. And as we all know, some of the problems we have with park development is the lack of money. We don't have the funds to develop a park, and now we have the funds to develop this park. We're all ready to go. The plans are drawn up. We're all ready to develop the park. But here at the 11th hour, because of the City Hall question, you're ostensibly going ahead with putting a City Hall on what is a park site. And I find that reprehensible. I just think that you should not do that. You should reject this site right off the bat so that the Citizens Committee can look at other sites. I don't think you're being very responsible if you go and put this site into the mix when you know how difficult it is going to be to change that agreement. You have to get approval from the Irvine Company. You'd be breaking the faith of the people when you made the CIOSA agreement, and you'd be requiring all kinds of zone changes and environmental impact reports. So I urge you just to take it off the table. I personally like this particular location that we're standing in right now for a city hall, and in that I agree with Mr. Ridgway, as I think previous speaker said as well, that one of the sites, we might be looking at other sites in the city, and I think eventually we're going to come down back to this site. But in the meantime, we should not lose our park site above the library, the Newport Center Park site. Thank you very much.
There's one comment there's two comments I'd like to make. The City Council is not suggesting the site be at that location. We were not trying to restrict the committee. Of all of the sites suggested for City Hall by the public, the predominant number of people have suggested to put it north of the library on the Newport Center Park site. So it's the only reason why we're considering it to be something that the committee could consider, but the city council has not made a recommendation to put the city hall at that site. And so
I realize that, but the rest of the city, the people may not be aware of the history.
Okay, I'm aware of that. Okay, thank you for your comments on that. And as far as the CIOSA agreement is concerned, it's also my understanding, City Manager, that wasn't the Irvine Company, wasn't there a joint use on this particular site of open space or senior housing?
This was one of the 4 sites that was allowed as a possibility for senior housing, but even for that, it would have required the agreement of the Irvine Company.
Okay, so but I just wanted to clarify that this site was open space and potentially a senior housing location.
And it was talked about being rezoned for a museum at one time, as well as the library that's already
That's something
there.
that was decided. Okay, thank you
So
very much.
this has been up several different times.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Congratulations, Mr. Webb.
Thank you.
I wasn't here to see that, but congratulations. I just wanted to reiterate what everybody else has said, and I think that the public was not aware of the agreement, the previous agreement, and for you to, let them know about this is very important, that they know that there was previous agreements, and for you to take that away from them at this point is, I think it's certainly wrong. The traffic situation between the park having 129 parking places and City Hall having, I think, Homer may have said 300 and some parking places, there's a major difference. There's already such a major problem at that intersection that I can't see having City Hall there without, I don't know what you would do to remedy that. But the main thing, I think, is the informing the public of why that location cannot be changed, and having your support to not change it would be a job well done. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Anybody else like to comment? Okay, I'd like to pose, excuse me, Mr. Svalstad.
Bernie Svalstad, my point before was a point of order on your agenda. So.
Yeah, I will take that into consideration. You have your...
Mr. Mayor, council persons, I'm well aware that most of everything I will say you are already aware of. However, I know for a fact the public viewing this meeting are not aware of many of the facts regarding this Newport Center Park. I request you eliminate this park from consideration for City Hall for the following reasons. Since February 11th, 1985, this site has been designated for a park. Over 20 years ago, the City Council made a decision back then. In 1992, you had the CIOSA agreement they mentioned with Irvine Company, designated this for open space. That's what the city manager's notes said in a long agenda thing. March 2001, council voted down a proposed arts and education center on this site. May 22nd, 2001, $35,000 set aside for conceptual plans. It's over 4 years ago for a Passy Park site. June 22nd, 2004, the council voted $128,950 for conceptual park plans for this park. March 2005, I established a committee to raise $1.2 million for the park, 16-member committee. We did that, and by June, we had identified a donor. The donor wants to donate that money before the end of the year, to my knowledge, and 80% of the plans are completed for construction. The park construction could start in the spring next year. So the bottom line is, if this site is included in the study, the site is eventually eliminated due to controversy or cost. We have a potential of losing $1.2 million donor and a park for years to come. So I think I was up there tonight, walked up all the way up there at the top, and about 40% of this site is passive and grass, and you have the most unbelievable view in the city of Newport Beach that you'd be missing. So I recommend that you take this off your list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falstad.
Good evening, gentlemen, Mayor Webb and City Councilman. My name is Ben Schmid. I'm a consulting structural engineer, having lived on Balboa Island for the last 30 years full-time. Prior to that, we bought the house. It was a summer place for 20 years, so I've stayed with the city a great deal. I've done many buildings. I'm past president of structural engineers. I've done strengthened the Rose Bowl, worked on the pavilion, climbing under it to replace the beams that have been deteriorated through the years. So I've done a good bit of work in Newport itself. This city hall, I think, should be considered to be remodeled, because I think it could be done quite well. Footage could be added to the office area 12 feet out without extending out beyond any other building line along the northerly wing of the office area. Then the Building D, which is at the southeast corner of the facility, would be torn down, and a new 28,000 square foot building could be added there with an elevator, handicap, toilets, and the series as required. So
Mr. Schmidt?
I think it should be considered in a two-story garage. The estimate I've run, rough is $24 million, including 15% contingency that you always have to provide on any project. Now, what I'd like to do, I'd like to join your committee, the committee that is, on this location, and as a consultant, I'd be named on it. I'd like to see also an architect added to it in order to look hard at the possible remodeling to an
Mr.
advantage.
Schmidt, do you have any comments related to the, whether or not we should consider the park site north of the library?
As far as the site that is to be a park, I would recommend that it continue to be a park, of course, because I think traffic is going to be a tough thing. It's tough here, but you are here, and this remodeling could be done at this site without just hardly any movement of people.
Okay,
So it could
I
be
would
done
suggest
outside.
that perhaps you make sure that you send your application in to the city clerk when they come out, and
Certainly.
we'll consider you.
Very good.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to comment? Okay, I close the public comment period. What is the desire of the council concerning
Mr.
item
Mayor?
2? Mr. Selich?
As I stated earlier, I'm not in favor of including this site in the study by the Site Location Committee. When I first got on the council back in June 28th, that was my first full council meeting, I believe, the concept of the donor came forward, and the council approved the park name with the blank left for the donor name. And since this park is in my district, I took an interest in it and have been involved with the staff in the negotiations and dealing with the potential donor of this site. And I know that this site has been considered for a park for many years. It's people that are not only in my district, but in the adjacent district, portions of District 5, are strongly supportive of having a park here. During the period of time over the last 4.5 months, we have been working on refining the designs and getting the construction documents completed. They're, I think, as Mrs. Allen said, they're around 75% complete. And the city staff indicated that it would be possible that for this park to go out to bid in February and possibly start construction around May, I believe, with completion next year. And so with all of that in mind, I can't support including it in the committee's work. I don't think it will ever be a city hall site, be considered for one, because of all of the community support that's been out there over the years for it as a park site. It's been considered in the past for the museum site, and that fell by the wayside, and probably any effort to do a city hall on this site would have the same fate. And there is a possibility that the donation would go away, and it is a significant contribution to the city. I think it's the largest single donation that's ever been offered to the city for anything, and so it is a significant event. So with that in mind, I would not be able to support including this in the Site Location Committee's work.
Is that a motion?
I would make that a motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Ridgway.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Well, I wish this was simple, but I'll try to make it simple. I, obviously, for those of you who support having City Hall here, and I still fervently and passionately believe that. And yet, there are council members here tonight who wanted to go down a process path and take this out. And I thought that was unfair. Take this site away from that process. And I thought that was unfair. But at the end of the day, I want to do what's right for both the city and City Hall. And believing that this is still the best site for City Hall, and knowing that the Newport Village site would delay the process at least 2 years, minimum. I think it was fair to put it into the analysis, but I'm not going to support that. I think it's those of you who've been in this chamber for years on this site know the many times that I voted differently, but on this one, because I have a conflict with where I think the City Hall should be, and it should be right here. And I don't think there is another site in Fashion Island, quite candidly. And I think this bureaucratic process that we're going through to delay a site analysis is unfortunate, because construction costs and the cost of money are going up. So I will support the motion, but I'm troubled by this council going one direction and then pulling the rug out and saying you can't analyze this site. But I will support the motion.
Any other council members? Councilmember Nichols?
Well, I put this site up, or supported it, and I'll tell you why I support it. I think that we need a baseline, and this is an excellent baseline. First of all, this is not going to be used as an active park site. We're 10 acres short of active park sites in Corona Del Mar. It would be an excellent ball diamond for, it's 10 acres. You could have ball diamonds, industrial league ball diamonds, where the adults would play, the people that use Fashion Island. This would be great, but that would be lights. And lights would bother about 20 people. So, that would really cause a problem. We can't have lights that light up a parking lot or, a ball diamond so people can use it. We can't have active park sites. This is another one that we're going to put into weeds. The upper part that's supposed to be such a great nature preserve is not such a great nature preserve. The upper part of that has the greenest muck in it that I've seen. There is no flowing water. There is flowing water in a storm, and that is caught. We looked into it, and for $50,000 a leg, you can bury the damn thing if you want, and use the $150,000 for another nature site. That's some of the alternatives. One of the things that was brought out is Farallon. The street could be carried out to MacArthur. If it was carried out to MacArthur, you would have two-way turns on MacArthur North or MacArthur South. You could handle the traffic without any problem. It would alleviate the project we presently have on San Miguel, and this would be good for the community. As far as the upper site, that could still stay a nature center if that's what you think it is. But the culvert where it comes out at MacArthur is the ugliest thing I've seen. It would have to somehow be modified, made it look beautiful or something. And we have to do something with the dam at the other end, because that has a headworks, that sticks up, a big sewer that sticks up. And by the way, we ought to do this pretty fast, because when we toured the site, there were people sleeping on it rather regularly, so it should be looked into that.
Are they from Georgia?
Wait a minute. Be careful.
I don't know who the people were. I don't have any idea on that. They weren't there at the time I was there. Anyway, this has also been changed in zoning several times in the past 15 years, and I was involved in the 1995 vote that caused the Irvine Company to make that final agreement, and the CIOSA agreement just put this in open space. It did not put this in park. It did not say what that would be used for. It was just open space that was transferred to the city. The city immediately looked at it for a library, put a library on, tried for a museum, and it was not immediately put through. It's been in just rough stand as it is for many years. Yes, if you excavated that soil, the buildings would not show above the view plane. So this is the only protected private view that I know of around here that we basically have. You know, is your view protected by the city? Not very many of you can say that. All of those in Corona Del Mar who look out toward the ocean, they don't have a protected view plane. In fact, when all those houses went up that were too big, boy, we were told that, sorry, we don't protect view plane. You know, so you got to look at this thing and be careful. I'm not saying this is the site. I'm saying that this was a good baseline to trade off. The people who have looked at it throughout the city, and we certainly have received more than 30 letters, indicate that they too think that this has merit and should be looked at. I would support that this be included in any study. I think if you're going to take this out and modify and change the ground rules all the time, that the study will be a sham, and there will be no true trade-off here of where City Hall could be or what the costs would be. We're just going to have a sham, and we'll take 3 months, as Mr. Ridgway said, and that is not the intent. The intent is to, we have very qualified people who have said that, look, we ought to look at this again from an objective manner and see what's best for the city. And that's what I'm for. But I'm not for a sham. I'm not for messing around on this. I am for including this in the study.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Councilman Dago, did you have something to say?
Yes. When you look at the state of the parks in our community, we have open spaces, we have active parks, we have passive parks, we have baseball fields, we have pocket parks, we have view parks, we have beaches, we have extensive green belts, and all total we have 67 parks in our community, not to mention private facilities, yacht clubs, and golf courses. So certainly if you're looking for a blade of grass or a grain of sand, it's never far away. And certainly the character of our community, where you have this kind of open feel, I think people appreciate. I'm not sure that this is about parks so much as it's about views, and I can see that the citizens are very nervous, very anxious about their views, and I am sympathetic to that. So I think that it would be appropriate to take this one off the table. The thing about these donor programs, though, whether it's money or kidneys, they always seem to get controversial.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote on this? Anybody else would like to?
I'll make a quick comment.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Just call me Steve.
Steve.
Thanks.
I'm having a hard time with this right now.
You know, I'm not as anguished as everybody else is here because I voted against the committees. I thought it was a bad idea to start looking at new sites because I think we vetted those in our own minds up to that point. I think the sham that was perpetuated was 3 weeks ago when we set up the committee, knowing full well that these types of issues are going to come up. I mean, that's why, you know, to get on the soapbox here, that's why we don't put things out to a vote to the community, because as you can see by all the evidence that was presented here tonight, people writing letters to the Daily Pilot don't know about CIOSA agreements. They don't know about view plane restrictions. They don't know about non-codified ordinances. They don't know about 275,000 cubic yards of dirt that have to be moved to make that site usable. And so it's really, and the only point I'm trying to make here is there's a bigger picture here, folks. And when we start talking about voting on projects in town, on voting on, you know, are we going to allow not even just general plan amendments, but development and entitlements that exist in the general plan, vote on those just based upon sound bites and things like that without having full knowledge of what we're voting about, it's a very dangerous and slippery slope. And that's why people elect us to represent them, to spend the time to research these issues, to find out about these things, and to make intelligent decisions. And so I don't have a problem with removing that site because I never thought it was ultimately going to be a viable site. And so why waste the time looking at a site that we're never going to put City Hall on? So I think it's a pretty easy decision, actually.
Thank you. Let's vote. The thing that we're voting on is taking the consideration of the Newport Center Park site out of the committee's purview for looking at a City Hall.
With Councilmember Nichols voting no, the motion carries.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Item number 27 is the Bayside Residential Plan Community 919 Bayside Drive. The recommendation on this is to open the public hearing and continue it to January 10th.
Thank you. The public hearing is hereby opened.
I move that the motion, or that the item be
Continued.
I'm sorry. Item be continued to January, what was that, 9th? 10th?
Yes.
Sorry, January 10th.
Okay, let's vote. Continuing the item. This is the Bayside Apartments, the Bayside condominiums.
Motion carries.
I did that.
City Clerk?
Item number 28 is Santa Barbara Condominiums, 900 Newport Center Drive. Again, this is another item where you need to open the public hearing, and there's been a request made to continue it to January 10th.
Thank you. The public hearing is hereby opened.
I make a motion to continue this item to January 10th.
All in favor? Excuse me. Let's vote.
Oh, you need to close the public.
Close the,
No,
no.
we
Leave
don't
the
want to
public
close
hearing
because
open.
it's
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries.
City Clerk?
Item number 29, Coastal Land Use Plan.
Okay, we have Patrick Alford is going to give us a staff report on.
I make a motion that we approve this item.
I second that.
Hold on just a minute. Patrick is going to give us a simple, abbreviated view of why we should approve the 98 pages of corrections that the Coastal Commission gave us.
All right, Mayor Webb and members of the City Council. The Local Coastal Program Certification Committee reviewed this recommended modifications to the land use plan that you approved in May 2004 through the balance of October and into November. And on November 14th of this year, they concluded that the modifications that were approved by the Coastal Commission were acceptable and recommended the City Council adopt the document. Now, the modifications, as we indicated in the report, are extensive, but however you look at them, they mostly deal with adding more detail to the policies and adding language that is more reflective of the language of the Coastal Act. As I reported to you in October, there are some issues that we had some problems with, namely dealing with oil and gas facilities, wetlands, and coastal bluffs. But again, the committee did review these items in detail and found that they are acceptable. Now, the council cannot modify the land use plan any further or modify the modifications approved by the Coastal Commission, so this is an up or down vote. If it is adopted, then it becomes the new policy document for the local coastal program and will serve as the basis for the regulations that will be contained in the implementation plan component of the LCP. Certification of the LCP will ultimately transfer permit authority from the state to the city, and the city will be in the business of reviewing coastal development permits.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions of Mr. Alford?
Mr. Mayor, I have no questions, but as the chairman of the LCP committee and Mr. Selich is on that committee as well as yourself. Basically, while as a staff and even ourselves as a committee did not like some of the modifications that the Coastal Commission did, at the end of the day, the substantive document is almost the same as what we submitted to them. They kind of rearranged the deck chairs on the ship, and that's really what's happened. The committee, as you know, did make a recommendation that council adopt this.
For the audience, I'd just like to show you the 395 pages of information that the members of the committee have actually read, and Patrick helped put all this, or actually put all this together, and I'd like to compliment him on doing that and processing it with the Coastal Commission. So this is something that has taken a long time and many years to get to this point, and I would think that it's time for us to go forward. Mr. Selich.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I echo what Councilman Ridgway said, and it's not perfect. It doesn't have everything in it that we would like, but I think it's a good start. And once we get certified, I think there's some opportunities to go back and maybe request some changes here and there and some things we'd like to improve upon. So, and I'd like to congratulate Patrick and all the hard work he's done. He really worked hard on putting this whole thing together for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Nichols.
I find that this has great inequities, and I really think that we should address those prior to accepting it and go back and ask them. I believe when we talk about coastal bluffs and we say that the Mariner's Mile coastal bluff is not a coastal bluff, it's not in the LCP, so basically that's not under consideration at all. And when we say all of Irvine Terrace there, that's not a coastal bluff, it seems like, and then we say, well, let's go a block into Buck Gully where the person is up on the hill about 20 feet above the creek bed, and we say, oh, this is a coastal bluff, and we have right to grab dedication from this house and do these things, and we're doing this all under our power to preserve coastal bluffs, and this is so inequitable in our thinking, and even the Coastal Committee says that the public property only goes up to where the water typically washes, not even the high tide line. It's where the water washes constantly. That's where your public property ends. So we're basically accepting all kinds of constraints on the city, which I find them very difficult to be according to the definitions of the Coastal Commission. I think we should present these things to them, present these to the city, see what the people think, and take a good look at this before we accept this. We do have an implementation plan that has to be written to finalize this. Without that implementation plan, we're already going to these private owners and saying, gee, we got to have that access rights. We want them dedicated right now, which is later on in the agenda, number 31. And I think we need to look at this. I looked at it when it came out of the Coastal Commission, and I couldn't believe that if you look at the sheet after sheet, it's all added by the Coastal Commission. I mean, we had stuff there, yeah, mostly blocked out, and they just added, and I'm not, it isn't anything like what we submitted to them, and I'm not really saying that in some ways it's worse, but I'm saying it certainly isn't anything that we submitted to them. So I believe we ought to look at this and discuss it publicly and think about it, because it certainly is not equitable for all citizens on the same basis in Newport Beach under the same circumstances. One person's on a coastal bluff, but it isn't a coastal bluff, and the next person, well, it's not called a coastal bluff, it's the same thing, but it doesn't count.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
That makes a difference.
Okay, does anybody else wish to comment on this before I open this up? I'll open this up to the public then for public comments. Seeing no one, I close it. What's the...
We made a motion and a second.
Okay, let's vote.
With Councilmember Nichols voting no and Mayor Pro Tem Rosansky absent, the motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comments. City Clerk?
Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Public comments.
Hello. My name is Stephanie Murguia. I'm a board member for Leadership Tomorrow, and I'd like to make the announcement that Leadership Tomorrow is seeking nominations for individuals within the community with outstanding leadership. These awards will be presented on February 23rd, 2006 at our second annual Celebrating Leadership event. In order to make these nominations, you may email info@leadershiptomorrow.org with the subject line nominations, or you may contact the Newport Beach Chamber at 949-729-4400. These nominations must be received by December 29th of 2005. Please include contact information for both the nominee and yourself as the nominator. To the council, watch your mailboxes for your invitations to Celebrating Leadership on February 23rd, 2006. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Is there anybody else that has a public comment? Close public comments. City Clerk?
Oral reports from City Council on committee activities.
Okay. We have, first off, the Ad Hoc General Plan Update Committee, GPUC, and Sharon's not here.
Well, I'll give that report.
Sharon, please come in.
The GPUC hasn't had a meeting, so there's actually no report. We've been having too many city council meetings on the general plan, so GPUC hasn't had time to meet.
Okay, the local coastal plan, we just certified the local coastal plan, so, and Mr. Ridgway, would you like to say something about the implementation plan?
Thank you.
Okay, next item. Newport Coast Advisory Committee is Mayor Heffernan.
Nope, no report.
Mariners Joint Use Library is me, and we have no report, nothing new other than the building is really moving fast now. It's looking great. Centennial Committee, Mr. Rosansky gave most of my report, which is that we have a float to decorate. The first opportunity is for what they call cutting dried materials, which is very necessary for the beginning of the float, and that's going to be this Saturday, the 17th. So I would recommend that you call or check our website, which is newportbeach100.com, and sign up to be volunteers. And we need volunteers on the 26th and 27th of December. The 28th and 29th, I believe, is pretty close to being full. It's a great-looking float, and we're going to be proud of it when we see it going down Colorado Boulevard. The next one is the Marina Park planning, and we don't have nothing new on that. The City Council Ad Hoc Marina Park Advisory Committee, Mr. Ridgway, we have nothing new on that. Are there any other committees that council members would like to report on? Councilmember Daigle?
Yes, our Santa Ana Heights Project Advisory Committee met, and we're trying to bring the city's first riding arena online. We're looking, hopefully this month, to get a permit from Coastal. And then construction period's about 30 to 45 days, so we're looking at a spring opening. And it's a facility that embodies the character of the neighborhood, and will be very inclusive of all kinds of horses and riders.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, City Clerk?
Item number 30 is the Planning Commission agenda for December 8th.
Somebody ate all the potato chips.
Ms. Temple?
Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Many of you may or may not know, Don and I worked together as staff people for lots of years, so we know each other well. The Planning Commission did meet last Thursday. There was one item that was continued. That was the Brookfield Homes project, a residential project in the airport area of Newport Beach. The item was continued to February the 23rd to allow the applicant to conduct studies similar to those being called for in the draft land use element. Also on the agenda was the sign program for Newport Lexus project at, I don't know which address they're using, 3901 MacArthur Boulevard. It's an extensive sign program for a very large site in the Newport Place Plan community, and the Planning Commission approved it as it was submitted. The third item considered were changes to a small cafe restaurant on Marine Avenue on Balboa Island. The applicant wanted to change the seating configuration, although they were not adding any more seats. They were just changing to a higher number of tables that were smaller and could seat fewer people. Also included was an approval of a use permit pursuant to our alcoholic beverage outlet ordinance to allow the service of beer and wine, and that item was approved. The item which took a really significant amount of time was the Commission's first consideration of a project known as Mariners Mile Gateway, which is at 100 to 600 West Coast Highway. Just so that you get an understanding of where this project is, it is on the north side of Coast Highway between the intersection at Dover Drive on Coast Highway and where the McDonald's fast food restaurant exists. It is approximately a 56,000 square foot shopping center with mixed uses of office, medical office, retail, and restaurant, and includes a subterranean parking structure that will be somewhere between 1 and 1.5 levels underground, in addition to a bit of parking at grade. One of the most significant parts of this project is the addition of a traffic signal on Coast Highway on the westerly portion of the site, which would be a brand-new signal that doesn't exist there today. The Planning Commission discussed several issues, and the ones they focused on were soils and site hydrology, parking lot layout, the car queuing on the site, the car queuing off the site, related to the new traffic signal, and that's on Coast Highway, the grading of the existing slope that exists on the property, and the amount of traffic related to the grading and site excavation. The Commission took testimony, had extensive discussion of these issues, and gave staff a long list of items which to prepare additional information for their next meeting, which will be held on January the 5th. The Planning Commission really wants to take their time with this. They also asked that staff not bring back resolutions and ordinances. I don't think it needs any ordinances, some resolutions for approval. So I would think that this project might be acted on by the Commission on January the 24th. And that concludes my report.
Any questions of Ms. Temple? Okay, Mr. Heffernan.
One of the items that concerns me about that project is this 55-foot tall retaining wall, which, as I understand, will be the biggest that's ever been constructed in the city. I think, for instance, the one they're looking at Hogue, I was told that 40 feet was the biggest, so this is bigger than that, so it has to be the biggest.
It's a big wall.
So the question that I have is one of the conditions for approval requiring the owner, to put up the bond to make sure that what they start gets finished. Since, I mean, is that something the city can impose or not?
I don't think I have an answer to that question right now.
I think it's a good point, and we can work with staff on how we would arrive at that condition.
Well, I happen to raise that because I have a house in Avalon where I raised the issue before they started. They spent jillions of dollars. They cored out the slope, ran out of money. So you have a half-finished retaining wall, steel sticking out of the slab, and one-to-one slope with 3 tiers of houses, now maybe destabilized, maybe not, and the city saying, oops, I guess we should have done that. Well, they didn't do that, and I just don't want this to happen here because the proximity of the homes, they're not 3-tiered up, but they're pretty darn close, and it might be something, and I don't know whether we can do that.
No,
I mean, city attorney.
It would be, we will look at it, and I think it's a really good point that for staff to consider and to bring before the Planning Commission for consideration, as well as the applicant, to make sure that we can have some assurances, either that the project as designed is bonded to be finished, or that there is bonding to correct the situation and put it back to the way it was.
Well, you're never going to put the slope back the way it was. Once you core that slope, the worst thing that happened to me could happen here. You could take out the slope, destabilize it, never finish the wall. So once you start taking out that soil and start building that wall, you better finish it, or you're never going to put it back the way it was. So I mean, I don't know how you do it. I should know, but I don't. But you're gonna. That's a very sensitive hillside when you take that much soil out, and so somebody should look into it. Thanks.
Yes, we'll work with the city attorneys on that.
Okay, thank you.
Question?
Mr. Nichols?
Yeah. This also required coring into the rock that's already there on the 50-foot wall so that you put anchors back into the current hillside.
I don't know the specifics of the construction technique.
Well, I guess it speaks to that, and it speaks that you're supposed to go back 1.5 H, which means if the final core was at 50 feet, you'd go 75 feet back into the wall. I think it's a higher wall than that, actually, so it turns out that you possibly could go back as 100 feet back into the rock. My question is, that's under somebody else's property. Doesn't that require some kind of an easement, or can we automatically have that done?
Mr. Nichols, it's something that the developer was working with the adjoining property owners, and had gone through a negotiation process, and yes, it would require their permission, and I believe that that's one of the things the developer is concerning and will work out.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
No, I just,
City Clerk?
that this is a very specific, do you have any idea what's underneath? There's
Mr.
12 to
Nichols,
16 foot of sand.
Mr. Nichols, this is really not something that we can discuss tonight because this is not an item for discussion. I think that if you have a question like that, please call Ms. Timble, and if she can't answer it, then she'll get you to the right person that can answer it. Thank you. The next item is the approval of the donor agreement. Mr. City Manager, I have a question about the item. This is something that we are going to continue because I was under the understanding earlier this evening that the donor wanted to make the donation before the first of the year.
Well, he can still make it before the first of the year.
Yes, this is something that needs to be continued. We were not able to reach a final agreement on the terms of the agreement on the conditions for which the donation would be accepted. And the donor has discovered a way to make a donation to a separate foundation and then direct the money to be made to the city once we reach agreement on the donation, terms of the donation. So our proposal is to meet with the donor hopefully this week and go over some of the terms of the agreement so we can bring it back to the council on January 10th.
Okay.
Is that a motion? I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Let's vote. Get away from us, all in favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
On the next item, you can just say all in favor. Yeah.
The next item, City Clerk.
Item number 32 is the council consideration of amendment to Lexus sales tax sharing agreement to reimburse Lexus for fees paid to city for its profit.
City Manager, would you like to make your comments on this?
I will. It will be short. In June of 2004, the City Council entered into an agreement with Dave Wilson of Newport Lexus to pay Mr. Wilson 50% of the local sales tax generated on the site on a quarterly basis, not to exceed $9.5 million at 5% interest. This proposal, what is before council tonight, would not change that, but it would be in addition to it. When Mr. Wilson came before the City Council in June of 2004 and you entered into that agreement, the estimated cost of the construction of the project was $20 million. 4 months later, by September of 2004, when construction drawings were sufficient to come up with a cost estimate, the cost had grown to $27 million, and today it stands at $29.6 million. It was shortly after the beginning of the year in 2005 when Mr. Wilson approached staff and wanted to talk about maybe amending the previous sales tax agreement. There were numerous exchanges of proposals, and none of them were satisfactory to both parties, but recently we got together again and agreed on something that I could bring and recommend to the City Council, and that is that there are some fees that either have been or will be paid to the city that total $843,544.44. Those fees are really comprised of three fees: the fair share fee, the EIR and consultant, and the building grading permit and plan check fees, which total $843,000. So my proposal and recommendation to the City Council is that in addition to the previous agreement entered into with Dave Wilson of Newport Lexus, that the city credit the amount of $843,544 to Mr. Wilson and let him derive that upfront before the 50-50 percentage of sales tax kicks in, so that he can recoup the cost that he is paying to the city for those permits and fees. They are not being waived, but they would be reimbursed. There is an error in my staff report, and I conveyed it to you through email, to where the staff report says that I thought the cost to the city would be about approximately $475,000. After reevaluation of that, thanks to Councilman Rosansky, I think the cost is in the neighborhood of about $962,000, and that would include $843,000 plus some interest that would be carried over the term of the agreement of about $118,000. So the total $962,000 in addition to that was previously agreed to. My recommendation is that since there is not an agreement provided to the City Council, that if you could approve it in concept, that Council Members Heffernan and Rosansky could look at the agreement whenever it was prepared by the City Attorney's Office and or outside legal help, and if that agreement was satisfactory to them, then the city would enter into it, and it would be finalized.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the City Manager?
Just the agreement that we initially, was that the 9.5 million plus interest, or was it set at a set amount?
No, it was 9.5 million plus interest.
At 5%?
Yes, so we didn't know exactly what that total would be. It all depends upon how fast they sell cars.
It depends on how fast it's paid back.
That's right.
What you're saying.
Okay. Anybody else like to open this? Excuse me, Councilman Rizzo.
I just say it'll get paid back fast. They've already got steel up out there, ready to sell cars.
Okay. Would anybody from the public like to comment on this item?
Don, just one other question. That said 962, Homer, the 962,000 would be added to that 9.5 mil, and that would also be in the 5% interest portion, or not? I wasn't clear to me on that.
No, it would not be. First of all, it would be paid up front. It would be the first $844,000 gained, but what it does is it pushes out the 50-50 split by, let's say, 6 months or 8 months. So at the tail end, the agreement runs another 6 or 8 months, or whatever that is.
So we would not be paying that plus interest, we would just be paying that amount, but we would be paying it first, and it would move the other out, and at 5% interest on it.
It would pay 5% interest on the 9.5 longer. That's correct.
Mr. Mayor, but does that mean that the total now goes up because, let's say it's $10 million, let's round it up, and we'd be paying an extra year's interest, $500,000, because this money's coming out first, so we have a longer period of interest running? Should interest be told for the period of time to make up this? Otherwise, it's this $840,000 plus whatever period of time at 5% interest on the whole corpus until that gets paid off.
Well, I guess what I was trying to do is not open up the previous agreement, because that could certainly be tinkered with. I was looking at making it as simple as possible, and that was letting him recoup those fees right up front. It would push the previous agreement out further, and it would cost us some more money, which
but it's not $845,000, it's $845 plus whatever period of time at 5% on the $9.5 million.
Which is why I said the estimate through Dennis Danner is about $962,000.
How long do you think it's going to take him to recoup $845,000 in sales tax? It must be pretty fast if you're talking, a year's worth of interest on $10 million at 5% is $500,000. Has the Lexus folks given us an idea how long it's going to take, first year of sales, to recoup that? And the time value that money is paid back on a end of the quarter basis until we actually get it?
They gave us those figures initially when we entered into the agreement.
No, that's fine. Well, they're here. If they want to address it. That's all my question.
Okay, let's open the public hearing, and Mr. Lewis.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, congratulations on your election to your new post. Mr. Rosansky, same to you. This morning, the Chamber's Government Affairs Committee looked at this particular issue and decided to support the effort. First and foremost, as you know, Chamber of Commerce is very much interested in making sure that the city takes whatever steps are necessary to bring this tax generator into the city. We see it as a real win-win for everybody involved, and so we'd encourage the city to take whatever actions necessary to make it happen. Secondly, I used an analogy this morning that I think still holds true tonight after listening to the conversation, and that is that, and many of you may find yourself in the same position, in 1982, I bought my home in East Bluff, and I paid $205,000 for it. And somebody could have come up to me and said, "Richard, you fool, you just really got hosed. You shouldn't have paid more than $185,000 for it." Today, when it's valued at $1.7 million, what difference does it make? And so I asked you to give that some thought when you're talking about $942,000 or $843,000 plus some 5% interest, and you ask yourself over the 15 or 20-year payback period of this, or 11-year payback, whether or not it really is going to make a big difference in the long-term scheme of this thing. We expect fully that Lexus and Newport will be very successful in the community, not only the first year that they open, but 25 years after they open, and we're receiving much more in return on that sales tax than we ever dreamed about. Similarly, we have another experience across the street called Fletcher Jones that I think kind of shares that experience. So we'd encourage you to give them a break. As you know, the cost of developing this project is substantially more than any other dealership of its kind, and we think that deserves some extra consideration. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anybody else like to make any comments?
Mr. Mayor, Sharon had some information that showed what our assumptions were, and that was provided by the Lexus people at the time that the council entered into the agreement. The first year, it's anticipated that there will be $1.5 million in sales tax generated. By year 13, it's $5.2 million.
Per year?
Per year.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any comments? Do we have a motion on this?
Yeah, well, I'll make a motion as is. I think that I know the dealership is paying out substantial interest dollars on a piece of property that is earning no money at this point in time, which is an extraordinary event. I assume that the negotiation took into consideration the movement of the 9.5 out. If they do $1.5 million the first year, they obviously will recoup. They'll still be paying us, and remember, they're paying us with their sales tax dollars. But the agreement will take effect probably, it sounds like about 8 months out, and then we're into the corpus of the 9.5. So anyhow, I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any comments by the City Council? I call for a vote then. Has everybody voted? You going to vote? Okay. Would you like to borrow a calculator?
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Newport Lexus. We really appreciate you considering Newport Beach for your new place. I'm not convinced that's the car I'm going to buy yet, but maybe later on. We'll see. But you got to finish it fast because I'm only here for a year. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Item number 33 is acceptances of up to 17 offers to dedicate easements for coastal access.
Okay.
You know what?
We had a staff report. I mean, we had a very lengthy presentation on this at the study session. Does the council have any questions on this item?
I would actually make a motion that we accept all 17 of these offered to dedicates. We should have done it a couple of years ago, didn't, and I think we're at that same place again.
So we have a second on that motion.
Yes, I'll second it.
Any comments from the City Council? Okay, call for a vote.
Wait a minute, I'd like to make a comment, and that is I'm not going to be able to support this on all properties. On coastal properties, I would support it, but I can't on all of them.
Okay. Excuse me, I almost didn't open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this? The public hearing is open. Hearing none or seeing none, it's closed. Call for the vote.
With Councilmember Nichols voting no, the motion carries.
City Clerk?
Item number 17 is the unscheduled vacancy on the Civil Service Board.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one quick comment I'd like to make to council. I will make the same comment on the night that we take into consideration the vote, or I assume I will. We have a policy, and I would just say that Albert Graham, who was nominated, there are 3 people, was for 8 years on the Civil Service Board, and I'd like to read our policy. To afford the maximum opportunity for citizen service, no person shall be eligible for appointment to any one city board or commission for more than 2 consecutive 4-year terms exclusive of a prior appointment to fill an unexpired term. Appointments shall serve, or appointees shall serve on only one standing committee, commission, city board at any time, with the exception of individuals who serve on committees as representatives from other city boards, commissions, and et cetera. This provision may be waived by a majority of the vote of the City Council, but I think it's very discouraging to other people to make application if you throw in somebody who's already been on the board 8 years. I'll make that comment tonight. I will make it again later.
City Attorney, does that wording prohibit us from considering somebody that's already served 2 consecutive terms, or does it mean that if there is a time period between their service and when they apply again, we can consider them?
The way it's in, the way that language, I think, is interpreted as it relates to the 2 consecutive terms in the charter for the council members is that if there's an intervening term, you can run again. So that would be the case in this. But there's a little bit different twist to that policy because it talks about in order to encourage other people to apply for and be considered for these types of commission positions, then they have limited. So it might have a different impact on the background for it. But I think that it can be waived because the policy is not a law, it's for the council. So the council, if they wanted to interpret it in that you can only do two consecutive terms, period, ever, then they would have to make that determination to waive it.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a motion that we certainly follow the recommendation for Doug Coulter and Richard Gould. I will not support Albert Graham.
I'll second that. I think a really awkward situation was created, and I sat on the interview committee, and I was sure the only reason we were interviewing Al Graham was a token of his appreciation for his service. And, now that his nose is under the tent, now it's something else, and I think that really can exclude other qualified persons from getting nominated. And certainly Mr. Coulter, he's been nominated by 2 council committees already. So I have concerns about, I would support Councilmember Rajoy's nomination.
Any other discussion by the council?
Would this change our law? I mean, basically that we would not accept anybody coming back and applying for a position? Or is this a circumstance only?
Well, I guess the way that I interpreted the policy when I read it was that there would, if there was an intervening time similar to what the city council has, that there wasn't a prohibition. But this is, the city attorney tonight is telling us that there is a prohibition without waiver of the city council in this proposal, which is an interpretation that was different than what I had read. And if that's the interpretation, that's the interpretation.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
You are saying the same thing?
I'm not at a last-minute interpretation that I haven't been asked to make before. I think that the qualifying language in the beginning would limit to the two terms. Correct. Correct. But the council has, we have a little bit of a conundrum that I've just been pointed out to me, is that in order, you have to nominate is it per the charter? 3 nominees. So that doesn't mean, we only have 1 opening, so it's 3 nominees. You can go ahead and put forth the nominees. You can go ahead and put forth the nominees because, you do have to vote on only 1, so.
Okay, well, we can nominate all 3, but I will bring up that same comment. But, I mean, you really have somebody who's not, basically, under our policy, not qualified. So I think that's...
For future reviews and nominees, that should probably be taken into consideration.
Okay. Well, I'm going to add, then I'll change my motion to include all 3 as a recommendation.
Thank you. Let's vote. Is there a second to that change? Okay. Let's vote.
Motion carries.
We didn't do public comments, but would anybody like to comment on that? No. Okay. No, we have item 19.
Item number 19 is the approval for the installation of carpet at the Central Library.
I brought that item up. I've since resolved it with the librarian as to my issue. I have no objection to it. I'd make the motion to approve it.
Second.
Let's vote. Public comments? Public comments? Excuse me. Let's vote.
Don't close.
I'm new at this. It's closing. It's getting towards the end of the evening. Close public comments. Let's vote.
Motion carries.
I know. Okay. City Clerk.
Motion for reconsideration. A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
I know the public has been waiting, and I'm sorry I overlooked it under comments, was we have 261 days until our centennial on September 1st, 2006. I was part of the mayor's speech, if you remember. We're adjourned. I would love to come, but I'm doing a tomorrow. I think tomorrow.